The sacred moon god, when harboring murderous intent in its heart, transforms into an ugly meat-winged monster. Similarly, when they suppress their murderous intent, they revert back into the pure divine envoys. Xiang Beifei knows this all too well, allowing him to control exactly when these two meat-winged monsters should restrain or display their murderous intent, through his respected as a criterion. When Carrie and Rock transformed back into divine envoys for a brief moment, everyone in Changpan Valley was stunned. They never imagined that the previously ferocious netherworld spirits would suddenly become divine envoys in the blink of an eye. It's the divine envoys. It's actually the divine envoys. Many people exclaimed in shock, and some who were deeply devout to the moon god instinctively wanted to kneel and worship at the sight of the divine envoys. Don't kneel. These are the wicked demons and false gods. We can't be deceived again, Uncle Liang shouted loudly. Yet even he showed a hint of fear at the sight of the meat-winged monster turning back into a divine envoy, a reflex that was hard to resist. Respect for the moon god was ingrained in every bone of Changpan Valley's people, with the holy white glow emanating from the divine envoy always considered supreme in their hearts. However, because Uncle Liang and all the hunters knew the truth, they could barely accept it. But for the rest of the tribesmen in Changpan Valley, this was an outright overturn of their beliefs. This is impossible. The divine envoys can't possibly be netherworld spirits. This must be some illusion by the netherworld spirits, disguising themselves as divine envoys to drive a wedge between our true faith in them. The elder who had previously questioned Uncle Liang muttered, desperately seeking an excuse for this. This elder named Zhang Lu, known to those familiar with him as Zhang Lolv, was a highly esteemed figure in the tribe. Zhang Lolv would never accept such a thing, given that he is the one responsible for officiating the moon god's rituals in the tribe. Every necessary movement, how many times to kneel, what sacrifices to slaughter, at what time to pray sincerely, was supervised by him. He is unquestionably a strong believer in the moon god. If the netherworld spirits were indeed divine envoys, this would massively shatter his faith. Disguising? Still pretending. Uncle Liang pointed his smoking pipe at the two divine envoys, angrily saying, "Do you think it's an illusion by the netherworld spirits? Then why don't you tell me what kind of illusion could achieve this extent? Want me to pluck a few feathers to check for authenticity?" Speaking, he reached out to pull a white feather from Carrie's wing, though his hand visibly trembled. Uncle Liang was also deeply afraid. Even he had only come to accept this fact earlier today, and deep down, there was still much reverence for the divine envoys. Asking him to pull a feather was akin to desecrating the very god he had always worshipped. Yet Uncle Liang mustered the courage, knowing he had to lead by example, to show everyone that the divine envoys were indeed the meat-winged monsters. If he couldn't dare to pluck them, how could he convince the others? Grinding his teeth, he grabbed onto Carrie's feathers and yanked forcefully. Xiang Beifei subtly channeled spiritual power onto Carrie's wing. With Uncle Liang's strength alone, it would be impossible to pluck the feathers from these meat-winged monsters. But nothing was impossible with Xiang Beifei present. Even if it were an iron rooster, he'd pluck it bald. Rip! Uncle Liang instantly plucked Carrie's feathers. The feathers gleamed vividly in Uncle Liang's palm, their sacred light reflecting upon his face, sanctifying his appearance. He lightly trembled, clutching the sacred feathers, wiped away the sweat discreetly, then firmly held the feathers and strode boldly toward Zhang Lolv, pushing the handful of feathers under Zhang Lolv's eyes, saying, "Old dumb donkey, aren't you the one leading the rituals for the moon god? You have a collection of the moon god's feathers. Identify these carefully." When divine envoys visited Changpan Valley to preach deceptively, they often left behind a few holy feathers, telling the people these were the god's feathers, promising peace and security for Changpan Valley. The elders in Changpan Valley valued these feathers greatly, calling them divine feathers and securely storing them in the most precious jade boxes, only taking them out with great respect during significant moon god festivals. Zhang Lolv was responsible for safeguarding these divine feathers and knew their characteristics very well. When Uncle Liang shoved these supposed divine feathers in front of him, he was instantly dumbfounded. If Zhang Lolv hadn't just seen Uncle Liang pluck them from the meat-winged monsters, he might have thought Uncle Liang had stolen them from the jade box. How could this be? How could this be? Zhang Lolv's mind was stuck, unable to comprehend, momentarily petrified. Take it. Compare it carefully with the so-called divine feathers you usually collect. These repulsive things grew from the netherworld spirits. Uncle Liang forcefully grabbed Zhang Lolv's hand, roughly shoving the feathers into Zhang Lolv's hand, threw a disdainful glance at the divine feathers, and added, "If you need more, I can pluck some more for you. However many you want, I'll pluck. If it's enough to let you see the true face of these netherworld spirits, I'd pluck all their feathers." Zhang Lolv trembled as he received these divine feathers, his hands shaking uncontrollably like a sieve, his lips quivering constantly, and he was already incoherent. In his eyes, these were sacred objects. The tribe only preserved 10 divine feathers, and each one of them was more precious to him than his own life, something to be guarded with his life. But Uncle Liang pulled out a handful, a dozen or so, as if they were worthless, leaving him dumbfounded. On the other side, Zhang Feng was also completely shocked. As the clan leader, he was naturally very familiar with the matter of the divine feathers. He cautiously walked over, looking at the feathers in Zhang Lolv's hands, then at the 2 serene and peaceful divine envoys locked in the cage, and he was greatly shaken. "Wait, I need to confirm something." Zhang Feng turned around and ran outside the crowd towards the place where the divine feathers were kept, intent on retrieving the feathers preserved by the tribe for comparison. Everyone else was too shocked to speak, waiting for Zhang Feng to bring the divine feathers. About a quarter of an hour later, Zhang Feng returned with a green jade box, looking very solemn as he opened it, revealing 10 divine feathers, the treasured heirlooms of their ancestors. "Exactly the same, exactly the same," Zhang Feng said tremulously. Now, no one could doubt it anymore, staring in disbelief at the underworld spirits in the cage, feeling their faith collapse in an instant. Divine feathers, like the moon god's blessing, had long been believed to bring good fortune to all humans in the tribe. They had given rise to many festival cultures in the Changpan Valley tribe, the most famous being the annual Divine Lord Festival. The tribe's bravest hunters were blessed by dipping the divine feathers in holy water during the Divine Lord Festival. This was a very noble rite, and all humans in Changpan Valley took pride in being blessed by the divine feathers. However, no one expected that these divine feathers, believed to bless their human race with prosperity, actually came from such evil underworld spirits. How in hell could these divine feathers come from the underworld spirits? Jiang Chuan exclaimed in shock and rage. He was one of the valiant hunters who had undergone the blessing of the divine feathers, feeling honored at the time, but now he just felt itchy all over, filthy, and wished to shed his skin. Unbearable! To think that I was baptized by this disgusting thing. Most of those who had been blessed by the divine feathers were the hunters who knew the truth and participated in slaying the meat-winged monster. These hunters began to curse, feeling uncomfortable all over. At this moment, the 2 meat-winged monsters restrained by Xiang Beifei had become the focus of Changpan Valley. Everyone was looking at these 2 creatures, yet many couldn't accept the truth. Carrie and Rock still maintained their benevolent, kind, and holy appearance. Such a pure exterior was hard for anyone to despise or hate. The protective aura was so powerful that the people of Changpan Valley found it hard to vilify or question them. They had always worshipped these beings as lofty divine envoys of the moon god, and their radiance still influenced their thoughts. People's perceptions weren't something that could change overnight. Uncle Liang realized this and immediately walked toward the cage with his tobacco pipe, intent on dispelling the illusion created by the meat-winged monsters. Yet, the idea of hitting the divine envoys on the head made him a bit apprehensive. He gritted his teeth and decided to act, shouting, "Deceptive appearance, deceitful underworld spirits, deceitful meat-winged monsters. I'll knock the true form out of you. Demons and monsters, reveal your true selves now." Bang! 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 Uncle Liang had come to see hitting them on the head as the key to transforming the meat-winged monsters. He hit with great force, almost as if venting his anger. Xiang Beifei cooperated from the side, igniting a murderous intent within the two meat-winged monsters again. And in an instant, their feathers vanished, and their holy aura dissipated, reverting them back to their hideous and monstrous horned selves. With the divine envoy's facade gone, many awakened from the holy glow, once again staring in horror at the two ugly meat-winged monsters. Jiang Feng, as clan leader, forcefully suppressed his horror and asked, Divine envoys and underworld spirits, are they really both you? Carrie and Rock were immensely furious, roaring angrily, making the cage tremble as if it were about to collapse. However, Uncle Liang extended his tobacco pipe again, knocking on the heads of these two meat-winged monsters, scolding, Shout again, and I'll knock you senseless. Answer obediently. Uncle Liang, let me ask. Xiang Beifei stepped forward and said. He knew what truth the tribe needed and understood how to ask so that the tribesmen would believe it. Seeing Xiao Houzi speak, Uncle Liang nodded. All right, you ask. After all, you were the first to shoot them down, taking them both down with one arrow. You're the hero of our Changpan Valley. It's most fitting for you to ask. Finally, he handed his tobacco pipe to Xiang Beifei, saying, Take it. If they don't answer, use this to knock their heads. I've tried it and the method works. Keep hitting a few more times if necessary. Uncle Liang even demonstrated to Xiang Beifei where on the meat-winged monster's heads to hit for the best effect, having developed a feel for it just from a short time. Xiang Beifei chuckled silently. Uncle Liang thought it was his tobacco pipe that subdued the meat-winged monsters, not knowing the entire affair was aided by Xiang Beifei himself. All right, Uncle Liang. However, Xiang Beifei neither refused nor exposed the matter. He took Uncle Liang's tobacco pipe, knocked it once on Carrie's head, then asked, Answer the clan leader's question. Are you both the underworld spirits and the divine envoys? Carrie, filled with anger from being hit, sneered, unwilling to answer, thinking, how could I cooperate with human questioning? Yet, in a certain moment, Carrie's mind seemed uncontrollably eager to reveal the truth to all humans. Yes, Carrie's voice was full of passion, powerful and forceful, as if proclaiming the highest truth of the world. It even widened its own eyes afterward. Damn it! Why did I say it so firmly and passionately? Carrie was momentarily dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Rock, on the other side, also appeared bewildered, looking at Carrie. This mentor, is he an idiot? Isn't he the one who always taught us to keep things secret from humans? Why did he say such unreliable things now? Since you intend to slaughter humans, why disguise yourselves as divine envoys? And what is your purpose in doing so? Xiang Beifei knocked on Carrie's head again, and it had to be said that Uncle Liang's tobacco pipe was quite solid. It was handy to use. Carrie was furious inside but grew docile after being knocked again, continuing to loudly reveal the truth. We treat the humans here as livestock, herding them with desolate beasts to trap them in this area, preventing them from leaving. Disguising as divine envoys was because if we don't show our murderous intent, we appear perfect, and humans love this image. But when we reveal our murderous intent, we turn into underworld spirits. Some of our moon god guises kill humans as underworld spirits, while others, as divine envoys, save humans, driving away the spirits. This way, humans would devote their faith to the divine envoys and be under our control. More and more people started to feel shocked and furious. To the divine envoys, Changpan Valley was actually a pen for livestock. The deities they always worshipped actually regarded them as livestock. No wonder they could never leave this area, couldn't migrate, forced to merely scrape by here, constantly on edge to fend off the underworld spirits. The breaths of Jiang Feng and Jiang Lolv, among others, even became heavier. Is this what they called the truth? Was Changpan Valley merely a livestock pen? All the humans in Changpan Valley were utterly shocked, staring fixedly at the two meat-winged monsters. They needed to know more of the truth. Xiang Beifei continued to ask, Why are you raising us humans in captivity? Every moon god, upon reaching adulthood, needs to slaughter a human as a sacrifice to the Yellow Springs. Humans are the Yellow Springs' favorite offering, and the higher the strength of the sacrifice, the more power we can receive from the Yellow Springs. So, we raise humans like livestock, letting them reproduce here in Changpan Valley. When the population of humans in Changpan Valley reaches a certain level, we make food scarce, forcing the stronger-bodied hunters to go out for the Mengdong hunt. And then we begin to hunt these hunters, sacrificing their souls to the Yellow Springs to enhance our power. Sacrifice. Upon hearing Carrie's words, everyone clenched their fists in anger. This revelation was nothing short of earth-shattering, leaving them unable to bear it. The Mengdong hunt was a conspiracy. It was a scheme orchestrated by the spirits of the Yellow Springs, all to make it easier for newly adult Yellow Springs spirits to obtain powerful strength. Xiang Beifei asked again, "Then why do you brand the moonprint on the human wrist? What do these moonprint goo worms mean to you?" "Those are the eggs of our moon god race, and every moon god hatches from an egg. We require much energy to be born, so we attach the eggs to human bodies. Humans can cultivate, and during their cultivation, our eggs devour their cultivated spiritual power. Generally, the higher the human's talent, the greater the future talent of the egg as it matures." As these words were spoken, everyone looked at the moonprints on their wrists in shock and anger, never having imagined that the moonprints they once revered were actually the eggs of these meat-winged monsters, and their usual cultivation was akin to incubating the eggs for them. Xiang Beifei was somewhat taken aback too, as he initially didn't realize that these moonprint goo worms were indeed the eggs of meat-winged monsters. In essence, meat-winged monsters parasitized their eggs on human arms, using human bodies to propagate their offspring. Furthermore, the potential and strength of these offspring of the meat-winged monsters were determined by human talent, with those possessing higher talent providing more nourishment for the eggs. And yet, these meat-winged monsters still looked down on humans. Xiang Beifei calmly continued to ask, "But when you hunt humans during the Mengdong hunt, slaughtering them as offerings for your coming-of-age ceremony, wouldn't that kill your own tribe's eggs?" "No, we have a rule that those attending the coming-of-age ceremony can only hunt humans whose eggs have matured from crescent moon to full moon, because the moonprints on these humans have already matured. So, when we slaughter these humans, it's like recycling the eggs, taking them back to the Yellow Springs to soak until they hatch. Our eggs are fused with human souls. So killing humans is equivalent to offering their souls to the Yellow Springs." Carrie continued. Jiang Feng, hearing this, felt as if he had been struck by lightning, incredulously asking, "So those hunters who have cultivated their strength to full moon weren't taken to the moon god palace for a more noble mission, but were killed?" "Yes," Carrie responded. "How can this be? How can this be?" Jiang Feng began to tremble because his father, his mother, his grandfather, his brother, all had cultivated their moonprints to full moon and were considered highly talented humans who were taken by the divine envoys. They had believed that they were going to the moon god palace, shouldering a higher mission, closing off to cultivate and striving to become stronger. Yet they never imagined that these loved ones were actually killed. Jiang Feng felt as if a bucket of ice water had poured from the top of his head to his feet, leaving his whole body chilled. The truth was so cruel. Many people began to tremble with anger. They never imagined that the moon god they had worshipped for so many years was not only a villainous spirit of the Yellow Springs that slaughtered humans, but also relied on their bodies to nurture its eggs. Some people even began to cry, realizing that those who killed their relatives and the divine lord they worshipped were one and the same, which was unacceptable to them. Xiang Beifei sighed slightly, knowing that the impact of this revelation on Changpan Valley was unparalleled. But he also understood that without telling them the truth, even if he saved these people, they would never be grateful to him, only continuing to blindly worship the divine lord. Faith needs to be changed by themselves. This moonprint. Jiang Feng's eyes turned red in an instant, angrily staring at the moonprint on his wrist. His moonprint had also been cultivated to full moon, and they had consistently believed the moon god's words that the moonprint was a guarantee of extended life, believing that the human potential for cultivation was limited. and the only way to break through it was to go to the Moon God Palace and cultivate there. But who could have thought that it was all a lie? A blatant lie. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. I would rather cut off my arm than become a cocoon for the Yellow Springs spirit's eggs. A hunter drew the sharp blade from his waist, yelling to cut off his own arm. You're insane. If you cut off your arm, we'll die. The hunter beside him immediately pulled him back. In the past, during hunting outside, those bitten by the desolate beasts that tore off their moonprints all died. Tell us, what can we do to get rid of these moonprints? Zhang Feng roared lowly. Once, they had been grateful to the moon god for everything bestowed upon them, but now it all seemed like a joke. All the humans were scraping at the moonprints on their arms, these eggs that devoured their lives, filling them with fear and disgust. But Carrie said, the eggs are connected to the human soul. There's no way to sever it. Cutting off the arm is useless. If the egg leaves the body, the human soul will be extracted, and the person will die. So we'll have to carry this thing for life? Jiang Chuan and the other hunters were also panicked. These things were parasites, draining them of their strength. If they had to carry them for life, would they not be raising the meat-winged monster eggs forever? Wait, this meat-winged monster must be lying. At this moment, Jiang Shan stepped out. Anger flickered in his eyes, but he hadn't completely lost his reason and was still quite composed. Everyone turned their gaze towards Jiang Shan. Jiang Shan said, have you all forgotten? After Xiao Hozi was attacked by a desolate beast, he lost his memory, and he also lost his moonprint, yet he is still alive. He didn't die. So this meat-winged monster must be lying. Perhaps influenced by Xiang Beifei, Jiang Shan also started referring to the underworld spirits as meat-winged monsters. Right? Xiao Hozi lost the moonprint. Many people realized, in their shock, they had nearly forgotten about this matter. Earlier on, they had considered Xiao Hozi a desecrator of the Divine Lord for losing the moonprint and even wanted to expel him from the village. But unexpectedly, Xiao Hozi was the first to return to his true self. Since losing the moonprint, Xiao Hozi's strength has grown immensely. He can lift a martial stone weighing 300 pounds. His archery has become incredibly accurate. He was the one who shot the first underworld spirit today. Yes, he even saved my life. Many hunters recalled Xiao Hozi's transformation and spoke out. So Xiao Hozi became so powerful, not because he desecrated the gods, but because he lost the moonprint. The moonprint is the source of all evil, meaning if each of us could remove the moonprint, we could become stronger? Many hunters were exceedingly angry. They could have had more strength to combat the desolate beasts, yet the moonprint had stripped them of everything. Xiao Hozi, how did you lose the moonprint? Many people looked towards Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei was now their only hope, and they wanted to separate the moonprint from their own arms as well. Xiang Beifei pondered for a moment, then said, I can't explain just yet, but I will get to the bottom of this and find a way to help everyone remove the moonprint, to become truly human again. Xiao Hozi, we're all counting on you now. The humans of Changpan Valley saw hope and looked gratefully at Xiang Beifei. Carrie realized he had inadvertently revealed the truth and was furious, saying viciously, You're getting happy too soon. You've killed so many of our kind now, the Moon God Palace will notice eventually. When our army comes, we will make you repay in blood. Do you really think this tiny Changpan Valley can withstand us? All the humans' expressions changed again, looking at each other in astonishment. Even now, knowing the truth, they understood the people of Changpan Valley were no match for the underworld spirits. If the underworld spirits attacked, every human in Changpan Valley would be killed. Now we're in trouble. Everyone began to worry, questioning if they stood any chance against the underworld spirits. Why had they been kept in this reserve? Roughly, when will they find out the coming-of-age ceremony here has gone wrong? Xiang Beifei asked. I've sent the message back a long time ago. They already know. Carrie sneered. Everyone became tense. Xiang Beifei said calmly, This is not the time to panic. We must find a way to save ourselves. He knew it was impossible for the meat-winged monster to send a message back, because he had anticipated the situation when capturing the meat-winged monster, sealing off the entire space to prevent any information from getting out. But even if the space was sealed off and the news didn't return in time, after all, this is a coming-of-age ceremony, and sooner or later, they will notice something is wrong and realize something happened here. Xiang Beifei couldn't say how long he could delay now, but he had to think carefully about how to protect Changpan Valley. Carrie continued over there. If you don't want the entire Changpan Valley to be exterminated, then obediently release us. Otherwise, when our army arrives, we will definitely wipe all of you out. His words were very threatening, and many people were in shock. This Uncle Liang stood up, angrily snatching the smoking pipe from Xiang Beifei's hand and knocked it on Carrie's head, shouting, "You disgusting meat-winged monsters! Even if we die, we will never become your slaves, let alone help you hatch eggs." He unceremoniously knocked on Carrie's head and then turned to everyone, saying, "Did you all see? Did you all see this? This is the moon god we have always worshipped. This is the belief of our human race. Treating our human race as slaves, slaughtering us like livestock, yet hypocritically pretending to protect us. Zhang Lolv, do you still have any doubts? If you still have doubts, I will knock it into you." Uncle Liang had simply used his smoking pipe as a tool to uphold justice, pounding it on the meat-winged monster's head. Bang! 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 Carrie and Rock, the two meat-winged monsters, were almost spitting blood in rage. They had just turned back into meat-winged monsters for less than 2 minutes, only to have their heads knocked again. The most frustrating thing was that while being knocked, they couldn't hate Uncle Liang in their hearts. Even in their perception, Uncle Liang knocking their heads was a sacred action, which they should tolerate with generosity, love, and gratitude towards Uncle Liang, and then they became noble divine envoys again. At this time, Zhang Lolv didn't dare to respond anymore, his eyes full of fear and grief. He once felt proud because his son was chosen by the divine envoy after training to the full moon. Now he realized that his son might also have met a tragic end. Uncle Liang went to knock with the smoking pipe again. "You have caused the deaths of so many humans, killing so many of my friends and family. Even if I knock for 10,000 years, it would not be excessive." Bang! 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 The poor two divine envoys, once again knocked back into meat-winged monsters. Bang! 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 The meat-winged monsters were knocked back into divine envoys. To vent his anger, Uncle Liang's knocks with the smoking pipe became increasingly vigorous, knocking Carrie and Rock from divine envoys into meat-winged monsters, then from meat-winged monsters back into divine envoys, and then once again into meat-winged monsters. The repeated knocking made many people's eyelids twitch uncontrollably, admiring Uncle Liang's courage. As Uncle Liang continued his cycle of knocking, the deepest impression in everyone's mind became bang, bang, bang. Remember, we must resist. We absolutely cannot be manipulated by the Yellow Springs evil spirits. We are all living humans. Even if we die, we must die with dignity, not as puppets led to slaughter. Uncle Liang passionately admonished everyone, and his words aroused each person's fighting spirit as if they were awakening, reclaiming the dignity they should have as humans. That's right. We must not retreat. We must unite. We cannot let our descendants be treated as livestock to hatch eggs like us. We must fight back even unto death. Defeat the Yellow Springs evil spirits. Jiang Chuan also shouted in agreement. Defeat the Yellow Springs evil spirits. Many people also cried out with righteous indignation. The entire Changpan Valley resonated with various shouts, echoing thunderously throughout the valley for a long time. Many who learned their relatives had been killed by the Yellow Springs evil spirits picked up stones and started smashing the two meat-winged monsters to vent their rage. Go! Tear down all the statues of the moon god. It doesn't deserve our reverence. Uncle Liang shouted loudly. The crowd began to energetically dismantle the remnants left by the moon god, especially the statue on the highest mountain. Xiang Beifei had long used his strong orifice perception to protect the entire valley. He did not stop the actions of these humans, hoping they could fully vent the anger in their hearts. Although the humans here would be of little use even if they all joined forces under normal circumstances, a god-refining stage carry could erase all these humans. The humans of Changpan Valley were too weak. They had been suppressed for years. Any outstanding genius born would be killed, leaving no one to resist. But Xiang Beifei hoped to save a group of awakened humans, rather than a bunch of cowardly people deceiving themselves and not daring to fight back. So even if they couldn't match, Xiang Beifei would find a way to help these people. Of course, saving tens of thousands on the territory of the meat-winged monsters was indeed a bit challenging. For 2 consecutive days, the people of Changpan Valley have been venting their anger at the Moon God, destroying all gifts bestowed by the Moon God, including various Moon God vines used to defend against desolate beasts, as well as statues. Anything related to the Moon God has been destroyed. The 2 meat-winged monsters were captured, but Xiang Beifei didn't kill them. Instead, he hung them up in Changpan Valley as a warning to everyone. More and more humans began to realize the need for self-rescue. Jiang Feng, as the clan leader, along with the men of the clan, started setting up various traps around Changpan Valley to defend against the Yellow Springs evil spirits. Due to Xiang Beifei's shooting of the meat-winged monster, everyone in the clan, even women and children, began to diligently practice archery, hoping it would come in handy at a critical moment, so they could shoot the meat-winged monster in the future. Xiang Beifei didn't stop these people. Instead, he took the time to teach them archery. This was their fight to protect. No matter what kind of strength they could exert, they had to be part of it. They must learn to fight back. During these 2 days, he wasn't idle either. He used every method he could think of to protect Changpan Valley, trying not to let the 2 moons in the sky discover anything suspicious here. Howl! Era lay on his back in the courtyard, leisurely eating a piece of the spiritual power crystal, while tilting his head to inquire what Xiang Beifei was doing. Rescuing people. Xiang Beifei was kneading a pile of breath soil, combining it into a hard stone, while engraving various array patterns inside the stone. Howling! Era didn't quite understand how breath soil could rescue people. You'll know when the time comes. By the way, did you take care of those white vines in Changpan Valley? Those are for the meat-winged monster to monitor the valley, Xiang Beifei said. Howl! Era extended his paw-like tail, gesturing confidently, as handling these things wasn't hard. You. Little Yumong lay on Era's head, with 2 small branch-like hands supporting his chin, curiously asking Xiang Beifei how he managed to conceal Changpan Valley from being discovered. It's simple. I have quite a few system skills. Xiang Beifei looked at his system interface. Dao Master. Xiang Beifei. Dao Level. World Control System. Realm. Mid-stage Heavenly Connection. This system originated from Zhu Xinjua's system, capable of creating an illusory world space, pulling everyone into the system space. Xiang Beifei directly dragged the entire Changpan Valley in and then laid a layer of illusion outside, preventing it from being detected. Even inside the space, people in Changpan Valley can always see outside activity since he has greatly improved the system's abilities. However, this system-created space cannot be directly taken away because the system space overlaps the original location of Changpan Valley, essentially creating another space in place. This system space can only temporarily protect Changpan Valley from being monitored by the moons above. But if a slightly stronger meat-winged monster comes, it will definitely notice the anomaly in the space and shatter the space. Therefore, Xiang Beifei currently needs to use another method to transfer the humans of Changpan Valley, which is the breath soil block in his hands. Era and little Yumong seem confused about Xiang Beifei's abilities. Only Xiaohei understands it best. Won't you go find Xiaohei to play? Xiang Beifei asked while engraving symbols on the breath soil block. The mischievous Xiaohei is currently outside, setting various traps. This guy sure has lots of ideas specifically targeted at meat-winged monsters to create traps. Era rolled his eyes and shook his head vigorously because Xiaohei is currently using 3 bricks to make traps, claiming to counterattack in Ho's way. Era hates bricks. Once touched, it would be stuck like a fool, let alone after getting the 3rd brick. The brick's ability has gotten a qualitative upgrade. Previously, with 2 bricks, one had to touch them to immobilize the target, and once the connection was broken, the golden patterns would disappear, allowing the immobilized target to resume action. But with the 3rd brick, after immobilizing the target, those patterns can persist for some time and won't immediately vanish. Xiang Beifei discovered this ability recently, and Xiaohe has figured out how to reasonably use this ability against those meat-winged monsters. At this time, the courtyard's wooden fence was opened, and Jiang Shan walked in. Xiang Beifei immediately stopped his work and turned to look at Jiang Shan. Jiang Shan looked a bit haggard, seemingly burdened with worries. "Can we talk?" Jiang Shan asked hesitantly. "Sure," Xiang Beifei replied. Jiang Shan looked at Xiang Beifei, as if trying to see something from him. He hesitated for a long time and said, "Can I ask a question?" "What question?" "Is my son still alive?" Jiang Shan asked hopefully. Xiang Beifei's gaze showed a hint of surprise. "I know you're not my son. I'm not a fool," Jiang Shan said, gritting his teeth. Xiang Beifei fell silent. "Your sudden powerful strength, your sudden exquisite archery skills, being able to deal with all the meat-winged monsters, helping us out of danger again and again, and... Jiang Shan rolled up his sleeve, exposing his wrist where the moon print had fallen off. "Is the power in me given by you?" he asked. "No," Xiang Beifei shook his head. "That was actually our own human power, your own strength, not given by anyone. I merely lifted the restraint on you that night." Jiang Shan clenched his fist, then opened it. That stream of spiritual power converged into a faint light, wandering in his palm. "This is my power." He felt it was very unreal. The power flowed so smoothly within him that it felt somewhat surreal. "So is he still alive?" Jiang Shan asked tremblingly. Xiang Beifei fell into silence again, and after a long time, he slowly said, "I'm sorry." Jiang Shan stumbled, almost unable to stand, and collapsed onto the wooden bench beside him. He clenched his fist tightly, seeming to age 10 years in an instant. "I still couldn't save him." Jiang Shan looked extremely pained, holding his forehead with both hands, his whole body trembling slightly. Xiang Beifei hesitated for a moment. Then with a wave of his hand, Xiao Hozhi's body appeared in the courtyard. Xiao Hozhi! Seeing his son's corpse, Jiang Shan felt all his strength leave him. He walked over dumbly and held his son's body in his arms, his eyes becoming a bit dazed. "I was too late when I arrived," Xiang Beifei said honestly. Jiang Shan clutched his son's cold, lifeless body tightly, feeling as cold inside as what he held against him. For a long time he said nothing more, just looked at his son. "It's all my fault." Jiang Shan felt as if his heart was being cut with a knife. He originally only wanted his son to learn to grow up, which was why he did not follow that day. But he never expected that the price of growing up would be so heavy. He hated himself, hated that he hadn't followed Xiao Hozhi secretly, letting Xiao Hozhi hunt alone. If he had gone with him that day, he certainly would have been able to protect Xiao Hozhi, to protect his son. "I failed to fulfill what I promised your mother, Xiao Hozhi. Father is sorry. If possible, I really wish I could trade my life to bring you back." Self-blame, guilt, grief, various emotions filled his mind, and Jiang Shan was on the brink of collapse. Xiang Beifei sat quietly on the side, not knowing how to comfort this father. During these days of interaction, he could clearly feel that Jiang Shan truly loved this son, using various methods to protect Xiao Hozhi. Although there was an accident, at least Xiao Hozhi always had someone accompanying him as he grew up. Not like some couple who, to this day, nobody knows where they've wandered off to, causing so much worry. After hesitating for a long time, he finally said, "I don't want to blindly give you hope, but I think there's still a possibility to bring him back." Jiang Shan suddenly lifted his head, staring at Xiang Beifei. "You can bring him back?" Xiang Beifei explained. "That meat-winged monster mentioned that moonprint is their egg. If it's removed, it means the egg will draw away the host's soul." He paused and then continued. "But obviously, Xiao Hozhi's moonprint hadn't been cultivated to the crescent moon. only in the new moon state. That means the egg couldn't fully hatch. And when Xiao Hozi encountered danger, it abandoned the body and fled, causing Xiao Hozi to die first. I interrogated the meat-winged monster, and if it's such a situation, these eggs would all return to Huangquan by themselves, waiting for the next round of allocation. What does that mean? Jiang Shan asked eagerly. If I can find Huangquan and locate that egg, I could re-implant it into Xiao Hozi's body. Xiao Hozi's body is intact, and his soul can possibly return to it, perhaps giving him a chance to be resurrected. Restoring Xiao Hozi's body to any state wasn't a problem for the current Xiang Beifei. Hope gradually lit up in Jiang Shan's eyes, and he pressed on. Really? It's just a hypothesis. I will try, because after all, you are humans parasitized by the meat-winged monster, and the ways of death are different. But I can't give you a complete guarantee, so don't hold too much hope because I fear if it fails, you will be even more disappointed, Xiang Beifei said. Xiao Hozi wasn't killed by a desolate beast but by the egg of a meat-winged monster. When the egg perceived the threat of the desolate beast, it decisively left Xiao Hozi's body with Xiao Hozi's soul, meaning Xiao Hozi was already dead at that time, only to be swallowed by the purple gold snake afterward. If the soul was still intact, given the various abilities Xiang Beifei now held, there was still a chance of revival. What can I do to help you? I'll do anything. Just say the word. Jiang Shan's gaze gradually became firm. He was willing to pay any price for his son. We'll see when the time comes. It's hard to say now. I'll safeguard his body first. Xiang Beifei waved his hand, and Xiao Hozi's body was withdrawn. Jiang Shan watched all this in astonishment, having no idea where Xiao Hozi's body went, disappearing into thin air right before his eyes. To him, it was simply a miracle. Are you a god? He asked in shock. I am human just like you, all human. It's just that I've reached a higher realm through cultivation and gained some special abilities. If you follow the right cultivation method, you also have a chance to reach my level, Xiang Beifei explained. I can reach such a level? Jiang Shan seemed still unable to accept it. You are human? But you're not from our Changpan Valley. Where did you come from? Jiuzhou. I come from Jiuzhou, a distant place that should share the same ancestors with here, both from Hanxia. Over 3,000 years ago, the evil spirits of Huangquan allied with another race, attacking the human race. Some people escaped and established the Jiuzhou continent on the other side of the Pure Land. Those who didn't escape in time were captured and brought here as slaves, and that's who you are. Xiang Beifei wasn't planning to hide it. He also needed to slowly let people here understand where the roots of the human race lay. In Jiuzhou, without the suppression of Huangquan evil spirits, we developed very quickly. Everyone could cultivate freely, and the people's strength there is very powerful. But here, you're too restricted by the meat-winged monster, as if, in over 3,000 years, you're still in a primitive society, even lagging behind the Hanxia civilization. In Hanxia, at least, it was like an ancient civilization, but Changpan Valley was more like a primitive tribe living by hunting and gathering. Jiang Shan looked extremely shocked, never having thought that the human race had such a past. I didn't know you were taken here before, only coming across here by chance on my way from Jiuzhou, seeing your situation, and thus decided to use your son's identity to awaken you, Xiang Beifei continued. Jiuzhou. Jiang Shan suddenly paused, furrowing his brows deeply as if recalling something, and then said, I seem to have heard someone talk about Jiuzhou before, and what they said seemed not much different from what you were saying. It was Xiang Beifei's turn to be surprised. You've heard of Jiuzhou? Where did you hear it from? The Eternal Night Demon King, more than 100 years ago, sought to find Hanxia's humans but was intercepted miles away from Jiuzhou by Xiang Beifei's grandfather, who severely wounded it and destroyed all the meat-winged monsters. Therefore, the meat-winged monsters never had the chance to approach the Jiuzhou continent and still do not know the exact location of the Jiuzhou continent, perhaps not even the name Jiuzhou. So how did Jiang Shan hear of Jiuzhou? Jiang Shan gradually calmed himself, recalling it for a moment, then said, I vaguely remember 10 years ago? It's too long ago. I can't quite recall. Someone appeared in our Changpan Valley, He seemed to mention that he was also from Jojo. There was another Jojo person here 10 years ago. Who was that person? Xiang Beifei asked in amazement. Jiang Shan shook his head and said, I don't know. At the time, he mentioned that humans should not be enslaved and said the moon god was deceiving the masses. But he stopped here, his expression a bit embarrassed, as if he had some unspeakable difficulties. Xiang Beifei understood. You treated him as a heretic blaspheming the divine lord, a human traitor? Jiang Shan sighed. Jiang Shan was silent for a moment and said, I only now realize that he was telling the truth. But in those days, under such circumstances, you should also know what would happen if you blindly spoke disrespectful words about the divine envoy. Even just a few days ago, the humans of Changpan Valley were still denouncing him because Xiao Hozi lost the moonprint, wanting to drive him out of the village. Directly telling all the humans in Changpan Valley that they were being domesticated would be hard for the people here to believe. Xiang Beifei foresaw this, which is why he went through great lengths to capture the meat-winged monster, teaching the hunters how to shoot down the meat-winged monster, using various abilities to let these humans understand that the meat-winged monster was their worshipped moon god. But obviously, the person at the time did not think things through as thoroughly as Xiang Beifei. He was too direct, neglecting the deeply rooted faith instilled in these people from childhood, which is very hard to change. What happened after that? The tribal elder expelled him from the village and reported to the divine envoy. As for what happened afterwards, I don't know. All I know is that back then, celestial anomalies occurred, with lightning and thunder outside, mountain torrents collapsing, the earth trembling, like the end of the world, making us extremely frightened. Jiang Shan still felt a lingering fear as he recalled the scene and then said, after the anomalies ended, things returned to normal. Soon, a divine envoy came to tell us that it was the arrival of the Lord of the Huangquan evil spirit, aiming to destroy the human race, spreading rumors to confuse us. But fortunately, the divine Lord had already suppressed him, telling us not to worry. Suppressed? Xiang Beifei's face turned solemn. Even though the Eternal Night Demon King was defeated by his grandfather 100 years ago, it still had the power of the immortal realm. This was one of the reasons Xiang Beifei was very apprehensive. If that person was suppressed, it would mean his power was only at the heavenly connection level. 10 years ago, who was this person? Xiang Beifei himself had entered the border wilderness for almost 3 years now. Calculating the time, had those two left the Jizhou continent 10 years ago? Do you have any other impressions of that person? Xiang Beifei asked. Hard to say, it's been too long. Back then, we trusted the moon god too much, and didn't have much of an impression of him, truly regarding him as the Lord of Huangquan evil spirit. Jiang Shan said, was it one of these two people? Xiang Beifei handed over the couple's photo. Jiang Shan took the photo, looking quite surprised at how such paper could render lifelike figures. He scrutinized it for a long time, then shook his head. No, not them. Was it this one? Xiang Beifei handed over his grandfather's photo. Jiang Shan shook his head again. Not his grandfather, nor the comrades Xiang Tianxing. Who could it be? Who are these people? Jiang Shan asked. Xiang Beifei was silent for a moment and said, family. I'm looking for them. Are they your parents and grandfather? Yes. I hope they are all right. Hopefully. Seeing Xiang Beifei seemed unwilling to say more, Jiang Shan did not press further. What do you plan to do next? First, remove the moonprint from everyone's wrists, as it is more important for you. Jiang Shan nodded slightly, again touching the mark of the moonprint on his wrist, confirming that the moonprint on his wrist had been removed by Xiang Beifei. Since freeing from the moonprint's restraint, he knew exactly what changes occurred. Thank you, whether for myself or behalf of the entire human race of Changpan Valley. Thank you for helping us. Jiang Shan bowed. Xiang Beifei gently shook his head and said, no need. We are all part of the human race. After solving the matter, he would let these humans awaken the Tao embryo. But not now, he must get these humans out, otherwise if the plan fails, those who awaken the Tao embryo falling into the hands of the meat-wing monster is definitely not a good thing. The people of Changpan Valley were always busy building their defense works. Although in Xiang Beifei's view, these facilities were of little use, it was progress nonetheless. Defending one's race shouldn't be a task for one person. Jiang Shan gathered everyone together again. Xiang Beifei had already decided to tell everyone his origins. When he mentioned that he came from Juzhou, everyone in Changpan Valley was extremely shocked. Their reaction no less than learning the meat-winged monster was the moon god. "You're not Xiao Hozi. You came from Juzhou? Why didn't you say so earlier?" Jiang Feng exclaimed, seeing Xiao Hozi turn into a stranger. "The previous person who told you he came from Juzhou, you reported him to the meat-winged monster, and he was suppressed," Xiang Beifei said. Jiang Feng and the others were stunned, then vaguely recalled what happened over 10 years ago. Most people still remembered the human once regarded by the meat-winged monster as the Lord of Huangquan evil spirit. It turns out that person 10 years ago was telling the truth. Xiang Beifei briefly described the relationship between Juzhou and Hanxia, and why they were here, what kind of world the Juzhou continent is. The people of Changpan Valley were quite astonished when they heard. Having never left this place in their lifetime, they barely knew what the outside world was like. "Is it the Peach Blossom Land?" Uncle Liang exclaimed. "The Peach Blossom Land?" "Sort of." Xiang Beifei didn't know how to explain it. While Juzhou continent had its flaws, living there at least was far better than being hunted as livestock by the meat-winged monster. Changpan Valley was a slaughterhouse, and here humans waited to grow up before being slaughtered. "You are from there, so you don't have the moon print, but we all do. Can you remove the moon print?" As the clan leader, Jiang Feng was still very cautious. After all, being deceived by the meat-winged monster for a lifetime made it difficult for him to trust outsiders. At this moment, Jiang Shan stepped forward, revealing his wrist, from which the moon print had already been completely removed. The moon print on my arm was removed by him, and once it was gone, the power within me felt like it had undergone a qualitative change. "You also don't have a moon print?" Jiang Feng was surprised. Jiang Shan concentrated his power in his fist, saying, "Yes, you can spar with me to understand the difference between having a moon print and not having one." Jiang Feng hesitated for a moment and said, "All right." Swish! Light shone from Jiang Shan's arm as he punched towards Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng looked at Jiang Shan's fist, frowning slightly. His strength was supposed to surpass Jiang Shan's. Seeing Jiang Shan strike towards him, he summoned his own power to meet the blow. Bang! Powerful collision sounded. Jiang Feng, who was originally stronger than Jiang Shan, was actually driven back by this punch, retreating dozens of meters. "You!" Jiang Feng looked at Jiang Shan in shock. "I only used 50% of my strength." Jiang Shan retracted his fist. The people of Changpan Valley were quite astonished that Jiang Shan, without his moon print, could overpower the clan leader. "You've become stronger than me." Jiang Feng smiled bitterly. "No, once the moon print is gone, you would still be stronger than me. You just need to trust this young man, Xiang Beifei, and let him help you remove the moon print," Jiang Shan said seriously. Jiang Feng was still considering. "Let me try." Uncle Liang volunteered. "I'm old and not afraid of death, so let's start with me. Young man, you can try on me." He gestured to Xiang Beifei. "Okay." Xiang Beifei didn't waste words and carefully removed Uncle Liang's moon print in front of everyone. The removal process was complicated, but with practice it became much easier. When he displayed the worm connecting to the body's meridians to everyone, many watched in horror. Afterwards, Xiang Beifei channeled all the power absorbed from the meat-winged monster's egg back into Uncle Liang's body, severed the connection between the egg and Uncle Liang's soul, and began mending the wound with powerful healing energy. Throughout the entire process, even Uncle Liang was conscious, watching Xiang Beifei skillfully work, seeing his body gradually restore. "How do you feel, Uncle Liang?" Jiang Chuan quickly asked. Uncle Liang flexed his muscles, feeling the power within, clenched his fist, and a green glow emanated from his palm, symbolizing his spiritual power. "Is this really my power?" Uncle Liang couldn't help but exclaim. looking at Xiang Beifei with growing surprise. The version of himself lacking a moonprint was a completely different person from before. This was an indisputable fact. He didn't expect Xiang Beifei's words to be true. Uncle Liang felt powerfully invigorated. Striding to a large banyan tree nearby and uprooting the tree with a diameter of 4 or 5 meters. This towering tree was at least over 50 meters tall. A giant, but Uncle Liang pulled it out effortlessly, a feat impossible for him before. How has Uncle Liang suddenly become so formidable? The villagers marveled in astonishment. Uncle Liang's display shocked them thoroughly. Although Uncle Liang was vigorous despite his age, he could never have possessed such strength. Yet, sans moonprint, Uncle Liang seemed transformed. This is astonishing. Even Uncle Liang was incredulous, looking at Xiang Beifei with joy and surprise. This is real. You can trust this child. Uncle Liang laughed heartily. His demonstration dispelled much doubt, with many expressing their willingness to try. Xiang Beifei removed their moonprints one by one. A grand task considering Changpan Valley had over 10,000 people. Yet it wasn't daunting for Xiang Beifei, thanks to his numerous systems. He selected a clone system, replicating himself multiple times, making the task manageable. The downside of the clone system was that the more bodies created, the more power was divided. Hence, Xiang Beifei rarely used this system, but it was quite apt for the current situation. As most moonprints were removed, Xiaohe came over, claiming to have a fantastic idea to counter the meat-winged monster. What's the idea? Xiang Beifei asked. Xiaohe took out 3 bricks, plus an arrow drawing whirlpools on it, then knocked the bricks together. Yong! The bricks emitted a golden pattern, linking together and converging on the arrow's whirlpool. Then it dismantled the connection between bricks and arrow. Yet the golden pattern remained focused on the arrow's whirlpool. Xiaohe gripped the arrow in its mouth, knocked it on the string, pulled the bow with its mouth, rotated to face Era dozing lazily, and shot towards Era's rear. Whoosh! The arrow flew swift and true, striking Era's rear in an instant. Ow! Era startled awake, barely having time to pull out the arrow when golden patterns spread from the whirlpool, binding Era. Era's eyes widened, its body frozen mid-air, futilely reaching its rear with a hoof, unable to move. Woof, woof, woof. Xiaohe proudly showcased its invention to Xiang Beifei. This is quite impressive. Xiang Beifei's eyes lit up, knowing the power of the bricks. Reaching this level was indeed remarkable. He knelt to inspect the arrow lodged in Era's rear. Xiaohe's mini whirlpool preserved the brick's pattern power. When the arrow hit, the pattern surged out, striking the target, utilizing the pattern's binding power to hold it. Aru! Era was immobilized for about 10 seconds before the pattern's power faded. Without a brick connection, it couldn't last long. Furious, it roared, demanding to know who shot its rear. Xiaohe immediately pointed at Xiang Beifei at Xiaohe. Awoo! Era, though somewhat dim, saw the bricks with Xiaohe and rushed at it. But Xiaohe, holding the bricks, laughed mischievously, causing Era to halt reflexively and flee, disliking the bricks greatly. Your idea is good, but it needs improvement. Xiaohe's arrow modification was crude, the pattern left by the bricks too fleeting. Even if it hit the target, the pattern's power dissipated quickly. If the pattern's duration could be prolonged, the hunters of Changpan Valley could all be equipped with such arrows. When the meat-winged monsters came, they could be shot at instead. The hunter's strength couldn't kill the meat-winged monsters but could surely immobilize them. Xiang Beifei immediately began to research this ability. He needed to craft a formation to maintain the power of the pattern for a long time. Xiaohe's current method only kept the pattern for a minute. He had to extend this duration. Concerning the brick patterns, Xiang Beifei had ample research. Comparing carefully, he soon thought of the patterns in the forts. Each fort had very special patterns. Xiang Beifei, in various forts, relied on these patterns to greatly amplify the brick's power. He didn't need to precisely replicate the fort patterns, merely use their method to preserve the brick's power. Xiang Beifei kept trying, and after spending the whole morning, he finally managed to design the formation. Era, come over. Let's do an experiment. Woof woof. Xiaohei excitedly went to find Era with a bow and arrow. A woo. Era protested loudly, trying to escape, saying why not use the tribespeople or find 2 meat-winged monsters for the experiment. How can we experiment on the humans in the tribe? As for the meat-winged monsters, these 2 are too weak. Using them for the experiment would probably set the rune power for a month. You're so strong. Contribute a little. A woo. Why aren't Xiaohei and I the test subjects? We're immune to bricks. Who told you not to have resistance to bricks? A woo. Era cursed loudly. Heavenly Connection Spiritual Power Crystal. In the end, Xiang Beifei bribed Era with a piece of Heavenly Connection Spiritual Power Crystal. Delightedly licking the crystal, Era stuck its butt high up, facing them. It indicated that as long as there were treats, it didn't matter how many times they shot. They could go ahead. Woof! Xiaohei wasn't polite either and drew an arrow to shoot. Pop! Era, holding the spiritual power crystal, was frozen in mid-air, tongue sticking out, looking incredibly comical. Xiang Beifei chuckled in amusement. However, he finally tested it. With Era's Heavenly Connection cultivation, it could probably be frozen for 5 minutes. Era was using its true strength to resist, and being able to freeze for 5 minutes, Xiang Beifei contemplated that suppressing its cultivation to the orifice transforming period might freeze it for about an hour. With even lower cultivation, it could basically be frozen for a day. These arrows would suffice. Xiang Beifei didn't need the people of Changpan Valley to do anything to the meat-winged monsters. He just needed them to shoot the arrows. If the other party used spiritual power to block the arrows, the rune patterns on the arrows would spread and transmit to the opponent. Xiang Beifei immediately started mass-producing these arrows. Making arrows wasn't difficult. Engraving lines on wood and then injecting spiritual power into them sufficed. As long as the arrows weren't damaged, their energy wouldn't deplete significantly. The people of Changpan Valley were busy preparing for defense, taking 7 days before the meat-winged monsters noticed something was amiss. At this time, on a mountain outside Changpan Valley, 4 holy meat-winged monsters stood, staring at the distant forest. Jingzhou, why have those participating in the coming-of-age ceremony gone silent? Has this been investigated? The leader was an exquisitely beautiful woman with 4 wings, whose elegance and celestial appearance could overshadow the world. Reporting to Lady Guanghui, I've already tried, but all the students suddenly lost contact. Carrie is responsible for this and should report periodically, but even he can't be reached. A man beside her bowed and said, the coming-of-age ceremonies usually resolve within a few days. Why is this one taking so long? The 4-winged celestial maiden Guanghui spoke softly. The coming-of-age in the moon god race wasn't highly regarded, merely young tribe members slaying humans to sacrifice the first human kill to the underworld. Such tasks were effortless as humans were too weak with nearly perfect kill ratios over 3,000 years. Hence, the moon god race's higher-ups never paid much attention. Occasionally, inexperienced young ones were counterkilled by humans, but those were rare cases. If a moon god tribe member raised in Changpan Valley were killed by humans, it'd just prove their worthlessness, gaining no sympathy. There's neither hunters in this forest nor any sign of battle, not even blood. What could Carrie's group of trainees be doing? Maybe the fledgling ones went to attack Changpan Valley. Jingzhou had combed the entire forest, yet oddly found it immaculate, without any hunting traces. The Mengdong Hunt was a large hunt organized by Changpan Valley humans to store food, guided by the Moon God Palace. This allowed the underworld spirits to massacre in the wild. Normally, during this time, the hunt wouldn't end, and humans would be everywhere in the woods. Yet now, no human was seen. The celestial maiden Guanghui turned her gaze toward Changpan Valley, her voice chiming like bells. Something is fishy. We need to visit Changpan Valley to determine the truth. Let's go. Yes. The divine envoys behind her bowed in response, then flapped their pristine wings, taking to the skies like ethereal sprites, leaving a trail of white light. Approaching Changpan Valley, These exquisite divine envoys discovered that the valley seemed unchanged. People moved back and forth, diligently practicing the moon god fist, and hunters cleaned game meat, storing winter supplies. Chongpan Valley appeared completely normal. These vile beasts act as if nothing ever happened. Shouldn't they be holding funerals for dead hunters? Jingzhou said, frowning. After past Mengdong hunts, the village held mourning ceremonies for dead hunters. Jingzhou had seen such scenes regularly, feeling peculiar not seeing it this year. Let's ask. The celestial maiden Guanghui descended toward the hill of Chongpan Valley, where the statue of the Divine Lord remained resplendent, the most exquisite structure in Chongpan Valley. The humans of this tribe would rather live in dilapidated huts and stone shelters than use the best jade materials to craft the Divine Lord statue, to express their sincere faith in the Divine Lord. Of course, this is guided by the moon god race, teaching the humans of Chongpan Valley that the statue is a sacred symbol, becoming their spiritual support, ensuring their unwavering faith in the Divine Lord, making it easier for these humans to become the parasitic egg cases of the moon god race. Every time the divine envoys of the moon god race descend upon Chongpan Valley, they must descend from the heavens, gently landing upon the altar where the Divine Lord statue stands, to demonstrate their noble identity, enjoying the bowing worship of tens of thousands of humans in Chongpan Valley. Whoa! Celestial maiden Guanghui shone with a holy radiance, like a silver-white waterfall pouring over the entire Chongpan Valley, accompanied by ethereal and melodious celestial music. She cast these divine radiances to remind the humans of Chongpan Valley that the divine envoys have arrived, and they should kneel to welcome them. At all times, as divine envoys, their entrance in the eyes of humans must be eye-catching and in the spotlight. Only in this way can they awe these humans of not yet open mind, and also showcase the supreme charisma of the moon god race. A group of divine envoys has already descended upon the altar where the Divine Lord statue stands, awaiting the worship of tens of thousands. However, they soon felt something was amiss. Although the humans of Chongpan Valley were enveloped in waves of holy radiance, they seemed unimpressed, continuing with their tasks, not even looking up. What's going on? This group of livestock, according to the etiquette we taught them, shouldn't they immediately drop what they're doing and kneel to welcome us? Jingzhou asked in a low voice. The other divine envoys also sensed something was wrong and looked towards Celestial Maiden Guanghui. Let's assess the situation first. Celestial Maiden Guanghui's long gown fluttered as she continued to descend. At that moment, they suddenly noticed a ripple in the air ahead, as if passing through a thin membrane. Still the same canyon before their eyes, yet no longer as they initially saw. The usual scenes of mending clothes and practicing the moon god fist had vanished, and atop every cliff in Chongpan Valley stood humans with cold expressions, armed with bows and arrows, ready and aimed at the descending holy birdmen. Regardless of age or gender, even children as young as 7 or 8 held small bows and arrows aimed at them. What are these humans doing? Celestial Maiden Guanghui's eyes flickered as she slightly frowned. In her view, descending upon Chongpan Valley in her maiden form was the greatest gift to humans, yet none paid her respect. At this point, Jingzhou suddenly exclaimed, "Look at the statue of the Divine Lord!" All the birdmen glanced towards the Divine Lord statue. The original image of the Divine Lord was a charming and handsome youth of indistinct gender, reaching forward as if to embrace humanity. In the moon god ideology, representing open-heartedness, selflessness, and love, behind the statue were 12 pairs of holy wings, symbolizing the absolute authority of the Divine Lord. This statue stood over 20 meters high, each wing fully spread spanning at least 40 meters, double the body size. But now, behind this noble statue in Chongpan Valley, the 12 holy wings were unexpectedly hung with all kinds of desolate beast jerky, swaying in the wind. Some already dried, others still dripping blood upon the statue. The entire statue was filthy, like it had been rolled in the dirt. What most infuriated the meat-winged monster was that the statue's high-reaching hands were clutching the necks of 2 meat-winged monsters, lifting them into the air. Upon closer inspection, the 2 meat-winged monsters being held by the statue were Carrie and Rock. "It's them!" Jingzhou was shocked, recognizing these two companions instantly. Carrie and Rock were still breathing. Their strength wasn't weak, so being held thus wouldn't kill them, but they were nearly lifeless, seemingly unable to muster strength. Yet, Carrie and Rock felt the radiance of the moon god, suddenly revitalized. These days they suffered worse than death, used as targets by villagers for archery practice, many venting their sorrow upon them. Seeing the maiden, they were thrilled. Finally, they could escape the bitter sea. Celestial Maiden Guanghui's eyes showed a hint of coldness. She hadn't expected Carrie to be hung by humans. A visit from the divine envoys, truly rare indeed. Xiang Beifei stood at the front of the crowd, calmly watching these meat-winged monsters. Jing Jiu angrily shouted, "Audacious! What are you doing? Desecrating the Divine Lord statue. What is this atrocity you've caused to the Divine Lord statue? Where is the tribal priest?" Amidst the crowd, Zhang Lolv heard the divine envoy's rebuke and trembled inside. In the past, he would have fallen to his knees begging forgiveness, but now knowing the truth, he resisted the urge to kneel. "Our tribe no longer needs sacrifice rituals." Zhang Lolv gripped his bow and arrow tightly, aiming at Jing Jiu, mustering courage to tremble as he spoke. "What did you say?" Jing Jiu swept his gaze over Zhang Lolv, eyes filled with authority. Zhang Lolv trembled with fear, nearly collapsing. "Are you deaf? Do you need to hear loud words twice?" Xiang Beifei patted Zhang Lolv's shoulder, signaling him to relax and stand behind him. At this moment, Celestial Maiden Guanghui smiled slightly and spoke, "Can you tell me what's happening?" Her voice echoed in everyone's ears like crystal wind chimes, seemingly sacred. In the past, the humans of Chongpan Valley would have been entranced by this voice, devoid of any irreverence. "It's like this, we worked hard to catch 2 meat-winged monsters, but had nowhere to lock them up, so we hung them on the Divine Lord's arms. I figured the Divine Lord was so powerful. Surely he could use his powers to subdue these 2 meat-winged monsters," Xiang Beifei said. Celestial Maiden Guanghui was clearly composed. She possessed orifice transforming period strength, unlike the impulsive Jing Jiu, aware something unusual was happening. But she didn't rush, instead smiling slightly and said, "The Divine Lord is a belief, protecting every human's safety in Chongpan Valley, bestowing blessings upon them. As humans, you should learn to be grateful and respect the Divine Lord statue. Only then can the Divine Lord better sense your sincerity, ensuring the prosperity and safety of the human race. Do you think I'm right?" She earnestly taught these humans, with her melodious voice and heavenly appearance, aiming to enlighten them easily. Celestial Maiden Guanghui wasn't new to Chongpan Valley. She knew how to speak to the humans here to easily gain their trust. Their thoughts remained in a primitive era, requiring little more than a few words to deceive them into compliance. "What nonsense!" Uncle Liang roared angrily. "You meat-winged monsters, still want to use your rhetoric to control us. Don't think I don't know, you monsters. Say one thing in front of people and another behind their backs, keeping us penned up here to slaughter whenever you please. Yet you have the audacity to speak so grandly." Uncle Liang was now very irate. He remembered his murdered son at the sight of the meat-winged monsters, so he had no fondness for them. Jing Jiu's expression showed slight surprise. He looked towards the Celestial Maiden Guanghui. The reaction of these humans seemed very unusual. They were no longer listening to reason. "Don't bother. These livestock, they've learned the truth. They all know what we are now. Quickly kill them all." They killed all our tribe members who attended the coming-of-age ceremony. Carrie opened his eyes, venomously scanning the area below, speaking in a faint voice. "What? Killed all the tribe members who attended the coming-of-age ceremony?" As soon as these words were spoken, all the winged birdmen were enraged. Participating in the coming-of-age ceremony meant they had grown up, ready to be sent out on missions, set to become the new formidable figures of the moon god race. A few even had great potential to be cultivated, but it was unexpected that they'd been killed. "Are you sure that's true?" Jing Jiu's voice turned cold. "Yes, it's true. Now only Rock and I are left," Carrie said weakly. "You human livestock. Jingzhou glared at all the humans in Changpan Valley. Many divine envoys' white light began to dim, clearly indicating they could barely contain their murderous intent, preparing to transform. The humans of Changpan Valley were also startled, seeing so many radiant divine envoys angry. They couldn't help but take a big step back. I understand. Celestial Maiden Guanghui's expression remained calm. She nodded thoughtfully, realizing something, then displayed a charming smile. The smile was enough to captivate the masses. Many young men of the human race couldn't help but feel their hearts flutter. It seems you've discovered the truth once again. I thought cleansing Changpan Valley would at least take another 100 years. This time it came sooner than expected. Celestial Maiden Guanghui appeared unsurprised by all this. Cleansing Changpan Valley? Xiang Beifei raised an eyebrow. Indeed, any human who does not worship the Divine Lord needs cleansing to restore the order of Changpan Valley. This translation is powered by the readers at MVLE9 MPYR. Celestial Maiden Guanghui smiled brightly, the holy white light around her increasingly dazzling. Although the moon god race called the humans of Changpan Valley livestock, humans had always been a race with remarkable potential. Their progress was fast. Usually suppressed in development, their thoughts remained in a primitive society, but humans were too clever, suppressed too long they'd sense something amiss. For over 3,000 years, human rebellions in Changpan Valley weren't uncommon, nor was being cleansed. Xiang Beifei asked calmly, "How are you planning to cleanse us?" All humans who know the truth must be exterminated, sacrificed to the underworld, leaving only the children. Celestial Maiden Guanghui, in white as pure as snow, spoke as if proclaiming the supreme truth of the world. Leaving only the children? Xiang Beifei wondered. Innocent children, they do not yet understand the grave sins their parents have committed. So as a deity, we can spare these children, teaching them from a young age to honor the moon god, cultivating them into believers, so they may continue as our egg pods in the future. Celestial Maiden Guanghui nonchalantly laid out her forthcoming plan. She wasn't worried how these humans knowing the truth might react, for in her eyes, these humans were doomed today. Letting them know the truth didn't matter. This place was a livestock pen for over 3,000 years, and never once had a human escaped. Every human of Changpan Valley saw this endlessly beautiful celestial maiden speaking such words lightly, amazed and enraged. Even though they knew these divine envoys were meat-winged monsters, towards such a stunning woman, each person still harbored some fantasy, utterly unexpected for the maiden to crush their illusion. Truly venomous, Uncle Liang shouted angrily. You are vile livestock, and should have a livestock's awareness. As your human masters, we can slaughter you at will. But if you dare revolt, you can only be exterminated. Celestial Maiden Guanghui still smiled, her gaze gentle. The humans of Changpan Valley were enraged, instinctively pulling their bows tighter. Xiang Beifei continued to look quietly at Celestial Maiden Guanghui, his demeanor calm and serene. You seem unafraid? Celestial Maiden Guanghui's attention also fell on Xiang Beifei. His reaction distinctly different from other humans. Uncle Liang and others were angry, but their eyes showed tension and fear, as they knew they were not a match for the moon god race. But Xiang Beifei was different. He seemed like an outsider, so composed that Celestial Maiden Guanghui found it very irritating. She wanted to see all humans trembling before her. Should I be afraid? Xiang Beifei retorted. Celestial Maiden Guanghui narrowed her eyes, began to laugh again. I always admire warriors unafraid of death. You have courage. I'll let you die quickly, she finished, then surveyed those belligerent humans. As for the others, those whose eggs are nearly mature, kill them directly. Those not mature, soak them in the underworld water until they are matured, then kill. Yes. Several divine envoys, including Jingzhou, immediately responded loudly, radiating holy light. Whoosh! A strong sense of killing intent rose from each divine envoy, spreading out in a burst. Next, their white feathers began to shed, and smooth skin gave way to lumps, while their originally sacred wings swelled into featherless meat wings. In the blink of an eye, all the divine envoys revealed their true forms. Buzz! Puddles of yellow spring water spread out from behind them, covering the sky like an overwhelming tide, filling the air. The sky atop the mountain seemed shrouded by this yellow spring water. The nauseating stench was unbearable, and the strangest part was the countless creatures seemingly struggling within the yellow spring water, twisting to form desolate beasts, desperately trying to break through the watery membrane and pounce out. These were yellow spring monsters, sacrificed to the yellow spring, and upon closer inspection, most of them bore human likenesses. These were once humans from Chongpan Valley who had been sacrificed, and without any unforeseen events today, everyone in Chongpan Valley would become part of them. What is this thing? Uncle Liang and other humans were visibly pale upon seeing these variously shaped yellow spring monsters. Clearly, they had never seen these yellow spring monsters before, as the purpose of keeping humans in Chongpan Valley was to provide the initial sacrifice for the meat-winged monsters during their coming of age. Having never witnessed yellow spring powers before, neither had the hunters. The only one who had seen a meat-winged monster wield yellow spring was probably Carrie. However, Xiang Beifei had swiftly subdued Carrie at that time, not allowing any display of the yellow spring monsters, marking this as the first time all humans in Chongpan Valley truly witnessed yellow spring monsters. The ruthless yellow spring monsters filled the entire valley, roaring malignantly, making it seem as if the world was being invaded by yellow spring monsters, astonishingly intimidating all humans, shaking the hearts of everyone in Chongpan Valley. Remember, leave the children. We will not kill them but provide them with a good education, the celestial maiden Guanghui said gently. Roar! Roar! The yellow spring monsters roared loudly upon hearing celestial maiden Guanghui's words, eagerly enveloped in yellow spring water, rushing forward to seize the humans. The people of Chongpan Valley were trembling in fear, barely able to hold their drawn bows and arrows. Yet Xiang Beifei's voice resonated in everyone's ears. Don't panic, shoot the arrows. Hearing Xiang Beifei's voice felt like receiving a shot of adrenaline for Uncle Liang and the others. As they understood that to repel these yellow spring monsters, Xiang Beifei was their only hope. Everyone regained their spirit, then aimed at the oncoming yellow spring monsters. Swish! 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 A dense volley of arrows fired from every corner of Chongpan Valley. In preparation for facing the meat-winged monsters, they had meticulously prepared for days. Humans were lurking in every easily defended part of the cliffs and forests on either side of the valley. This time, when the meat-winged monsters came with humans, they had received Xiang Beifei's prior warning. Except for the old, weak, sick, and disabled, nearly everyone was battle-ready. So, at Xiang Beifei's command, all arrows rained down from the sky, targeting the meat-winged monsters. Truthfully, everyone was unsure deep down, knowing that the meat-winged monsters were overwhelming, far from something they could easily confront. The meat-winged monsters sneered at humans trying archery to deal with yellow spring monsters, saying, "You pathetic humans! How overconfident you are to think that mere arrows can handle us." The abilities of meat-winged monsters like Jingjiu were at the level of God-refining, far surpassing that of newly matured meat-winged monsters. Without needing Celestial Maiden Guanghui to act, they thought merely dispatching yellow spring monsters would settle the issue. To them, humans using arrows against them seemed an utter joke. The yellow spring monster at the forefront, resembling a big bear, roared as it surged ahead, completely disregarding the arrows. With the arrows hitting its body, they barely penetrated. However, the yellow spring monsters soon realized something was wrong. Thud! The moment the arrows struck the yellow spring monsters, the formations on the arrow shafts activated, causing golden patterns to spread rapidly along the arrows to the yellow spring monsters in the blink of an eye. The yellow spring monster, previously intending to shake off the arrows with its robust yellow spring body, was suddenly frozen in mid-air, various mystical golden patterns crawling all over its body. Even with a malevolent expression, baring its massive mouth to devour humans, it couldn't advance any further. Bam! The yellow spring monster behind, mindlessly charging forward, crashed into the bear-like monster covered in golden patterns without anticipating its abrupt halt. Buzz! The golden patterns on the bear monster unceremoniously ensnared the oncoming yellow spring monster, immobilizing it instantly. This immobilization was incredibly strange, as logically, even if they stopped, they should have the momentum to break through. Yet wrapped in these golden patterns, everything, including momentum, ceased entirely. Buzz, buzz, buzz. One after another, the yellow spring monsters collided, with some agile enough to evade with only tail tips brushing aside. But even this minor contact spelled doom, binding them instantly. Yellow spring monsters in the air were arrested consecutively, with arrows continuously striking, forming a golden wall from the foremost shot yellow spring monsters, blocking and halting the path of other yellow spring monsters. It's effective. These are divine arrows. Uncle Liang exclaimed joyously. Zhang Feng and others sighed in relief, unprepared for the sudden potency of their arrows. How is this possible? Meanwhile, Jing Jiu and other meat-winged monsters were aghast. The yellow spring monsters they summoned had been immobilized by human arrows? This unforeseen turn of events caught them completely off guard. Yet more serious matters were forthcoming, as the yellow spring monsters tried emerging from yellow spring water, and being halted ahead, the subsequent yellow spring monsters were similarly impacted, gradually engulfed by golden patterns extending into the yellow spring water itself, immobilizing all the yellow spring water. This yellow spring water connected each meat-winged monster, and as golden patterns crept across it, they swiftly reached Jing Jiu. Jing Jiu froze abruptly, immobilized in the air, helpless despite their struggles. So there's a backup plan. No wonder they dared to rebel so openly. This is getting more interesting. Celestial Maiden Guanghui seemed unaffected by her companions being struck, noticing they were only immobilized, not killed. Though she didn't yet comprehend the formations, she understood these arrows' flight couldn't pose any threat to a four-winged celestial maiden like her. Seeing the meat-winged monsters frozen in mid-air, Uncle Liang's eyes lit up, yelling, "These meat-winged monsters are vulnerable. Don't fear, we're all sharpshooters now. Shoot that woman down too. Kill her." Witnessing their arrows subdue the soaring yellow spring monsters like divine weapons, many were invigorated, confident in their divine arrows, fetching arrows from their quivers and aiming at Celestial Maiden Guanghui again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Another rain of arrows flew towards Celestial Maiden Guanghui. Celestial Maiden Guanghui's gentle smile faded. She hadn't transformed when all other meat-winged monsters did, so she'd avoided the golden patterns. Unhesitatingly, she soared into the high sky, distanced from humans. As the human arrows shot upward, their range couldn't reach too high, falling halfway back down. "Is that all?" Celestial Maiden Guanghui smirked, yet even her mocking seemed pure, innocent, and melodious. The Celestial Maiden Guanghui is no fool. The arrows from the humans indeed have a problem. Those formations may not seem powerful at first glance, but they curiously manage to immobilize her group of God-refining followers, especially those underworld creatures. It's truly unprecedented. This power is absolutely unusual, and before figuring it out, she won't foolishly come into contact with such enigmatic forces. Uncle Liang once again put his full strength into shooting an arrow, but it still just fell halfway down from the sky. "She's flying too high. We can't hit her," Uncle Liang said angrily. Even when Zhang Feng and Zhang Shan tried, despite their greater strength, they still couldn't hit her. "Where did you get this power?" The Celestial Maiden Guanghui looked down at the humans in the valley. "Tell me, and I'll let you die more peacefully." All the humans exchanged glances, but they all stood united, realizing these underworld evils fear arrows, which gave them confidence. "What are you being so arrogant about? It's just a few pairs of wings flying high. Come down if you dare," Jiang Chuan shouted. The Celestial Maiden Guanghui's gaze always lingered on those arrows glowing with golden light, analyzing the strange power. Even with her eyes, she couldn't discern what these formations were. But as her attention shifted to the arrows in the hunter's hands, she realized something. The arrows were made of the most ordinary material, but the power was sealed within the formations on the arrow shaft. The humans in Changpan Valley couldn't possibly create formations this complex, which means they were assisted by an external expert. It seems this matter must be thoroughly investigated. However, the celestial maiden Guanghui had already experienced the might of the arrows earlier. These arrows only trigger upon contact. Without touching them, the formations inside won't activate. This way, she knew how to deal with these arrows. Pitiful humans, do you really think a few arrows can stand against the great moon god? Since you overestimate yourselves, I'll utterly crush your confidence and show you what a true god means. The celestial maiden Guanghui smiled faintly and then truly began to descend. Swish, swish, swish. All the hunters saw she had entered range, so they immediately nocked arrows and shot again, aiming to bring down this woman. However, the celestial maiden Guanghui did not reveal her true form. She simply fluttered her 4 pairs of pristine white wings, the feathers of which carried spiritual power, and gently swept them. Suddenly, fierce winds whipped around her, and these winds seemed to have a mind of their own, swirling around her, and in just a blink, they blew away all the arrows, skewing them off their original trajectory. Her methods are incredibly powerful. She can control the wind. Uncle Liang was extremely surprised. No matter how skilled their archery, they couldn't withstand the strong winds. The arrows that were shot were blown away, unable to hit her. You beasts planned to resist the Divine Lord, but with just these methods? The celestial maiden Guanghui softly looked at the astonished humans, then fluttered her wings again. Swish, swish, swish. All the arrows flying in the sky were caught up by the wind, suddenly reversing direction, and swiftly shot back at the humans. Not good. Get out of the way. Jiang Feng and Jiang Shan shouted, immediately directing their clansmen to dodge. Everyone was startled as they didn't expect the celestial maiden Guanghui to pull such a move, having the arrows they shot be retaliated against them. Moreover, with the wind's acceleration, the arrows seemed to fly even faster. If they were to hit, it wouldn't be just a matter of being immobilized. There would be massive casualties. A group of lowly beasts. Such a weak counterattack has scared you to this extent. The celestial maiden Guanghui mocked with her pure voice. But then, suddenly a ripple spread out, covering the sky above Changpan Valley. All the divine arrows shot toward the humans abruptly halted mid-air, not advancing further as if blocked by an invisible barrier. That was close. Thank goodness the divine arrows recognized their own. Uncle Liang patted his chest and wiped off his cold sweat. Everyone else relaxed slightly, involuntarily looking at Xiang Beifei with gratitude. These divine arrows came from Xiang Beifei, and it was clear he was the one who stopped them. The celestial maiden Guanghui squinted, and this time she saw clearly where this power originated from. It was indeed from Xiang Beifei. So the weakness of these arrows can be countered this way. Xiang Beifei realized. He knew the arrows he created couldn't be entirely flawless. They must have weaknesses. But since they hadn't been tested in real combat, he wasn't sure how they would be countered. So he decided to experiment with these meat-winged monsters. The overall effect was satisfactory. At the very least, it could catch the god-refining stage meat-winged monsters off guard. Of course, the celestial maiden Guanghui at the orifice-transforming stage quickly figured out a way to deal with them. Once the first batch of meat-winged monsters suffered, the second batch wouldn't be fooled. But Xiang Beifei wasn't surprised. He never expected the first-generation divine arrows to defeat the celestial maiden Guanghui. Initial products inevitably have flaws. He could always launch second or third generations. Versions evolve gradually, don't they? Woof! Woof! Xiaohe held its chin with a paw, indicating that it must add the windproof array to these arrows, along with other formations to prevent control. It's best to add power augmentation abilities. Otherwise, they would be too easily countered during actual combat. So, it seems you brought them to rebel against us, the moon god race. Celestial maiden Guanghui looked at Xiang Beifei with a still gentle and elegant expression, like a kind and polite saint, showing concern for Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei shrugged non-committally, already calculating in his mind with Xiaohe on how to improve these arrows. Seeing Xiang Beifei not speaking and seeming a bit absent-minded, celestial maiden Guanghui inwardly seethed. She, as a celestial maiden of the moon god race, couldn't believe this human was so ungrateful, not even acknowledging her. Not speaking? Is this all you can do? Just shoot arrows? A strong aura suddenly surged from celestial maiden Guanghui, the late-stage orifice transforming pressure spreading like surging tides, like a great mountain pressing on everyone's heart in Changpan Valley, shocking them profoundly. How could this damned witch be so powerful? Uncle Liang exclaimed in horror. In the eyes of these humans, celestial maiden Guanghui at the late orifice transforming stage was practically a god covering the sky with one hand, her terrifying aura enveloping the entire valley. As if a single thought could shatter this world, the humans of Changpan Valley showed horrified expressions. For celestial maiden Guanghui was the most powerful and terrifying existence they had ever seen. Everyone trembled at heart, with not a single thought of resistance in the face of such magnificent aura, only a profound sense of powerlessness, feeling themselves like ants in the vast ocean, unable to withstand a terrifying slap from the celestial maiden. Celestial maiden Guanghui looked down at Xiang Beifei, her expression elegant, but that terrifying pressure already surged towards Xiang Beifei, aiming to crush this ignorant human. Xiang Beifei stood atop the mountain, still calmly watching celestial maiden Guanghui, then slowly reached out his hand. Buzz! An unremarkable aura swept up, turning into a giant hand, blocking celestial maiden Guanghui's aura, protecting everyone in Changpan Valley and stabilizing their mindset. He merely protected them, not really taking action, but celestial maiden Guanghui thought this was all he could do. I thought if you were to save these humans, your strength would at least be passable, but it's just this? Celestial maiden Guanghui sneered. Xiang Beifei's spiritual power was not strong, even very weak, seemingly not even reaching the power of the orifice transforming stage. With such skill, he still dared to protect the humans of Changpan Valley from her hand? Pure fantasy. Young Master Xiang seems not as powerful as the witch? Uncle Liang and others were very worried in their hearts, for this appearing celestial maiden Guanghui was too powerful, and they didn't know if Xiang Beifei could withstand her. I will let you know what despair means. Before you die, I will make you remember that our moon god race is not something you can provoke. Celestial maiden Guanghui knew Xiang Beifei was currently the hope of all the humans in Changpan Valley. They all had placed their lives in Xiang Beifei's hands, so she intended to fiercely defeat this young man, publicly tearing him apart, making the humans of Changpan Valley thoroughly understand the outcome of confronting the moon god race. She waved her hand, and the holy light fell towards Xiang Beifei. Even now, she maintained a noble and graceful, beautiful appearance, with very strong mental fortitude. But just at this moment, celestial maiden Guanghui suddenly sensed something was wrong. She thought her holy light was enough to suppress Xiang Beifei, but the imagined scene of Xiang Beifei's power being crushed by her did not appear. On the contrary, Xiang Beifei's seemingly weak power suddenly transformed into a giant hand, piercing through her pure holy light, grabbing her neck instantly. Whoosh! Celestial maiden Guanghui felt her whole body tremble, and then her body seemed beyond her control, being dragged down harshly from the high sky, then smashed heavily onto the ground. Boom! Celestial maiden Guanghui was utterly stunned by the fall. She never expected that she couldn't withstand a feather-like strike from Xiang Beifei, knowing full well her strength was at the late orifice transforming stage, and even comparable to an ordinary heavenly connection realm expert thanks to Huangxuan's power. Yet, such strength couldn't withstand this human before her. Celestial maiden Guanghui felt ashamed and angry in her heart. How could she lose to a lowly human? But before she could react, a foot stepped toward her. Snap! Xiang Beifei's foot stomped hard on her face, completely distorting her once unparalleled beauty, even knocking her delicate nose askew. You, is this it? Xiang Beifei asked suspiciously. You. Celestial maiden Guanghui was stunned. She never expected this human to be so powerful, nor did she imagine he would mercilessly trample her underfoot. The most important thing was, this bastard, of all places to step on, chose her smooth and delicate pretty face. One must know she valued this face the most. She would usually take care to preserve her looks, ensuring she never became ugly. This face was her pride, admired by skilled individuals from any race. And thus, even when she desired to fight for Changpan Valley just now, she restrained herself from revealing her true form. However, she did not expect Xiang Beifei to stomp so hard, rubbing her face under his foot. Ah! Uncle Liang, Jiang Feng, and the others were all shocked. They originally thought Celestial Maiden Guanghui was a terrifying deity, an insurmountable mountain, capable of destroying the entire Changpan Valley. But no one expected that the goddess-like Celestial Maiden Guanghui couldn't withstand a single move from Xiang Beifei, being stomped down in an instant. This young Master Xiang is too powerful. Lao Lu, did you already know he was this formidable? Uncle Liang exclaimed in shock. I don't know. Jiang Shan was also utterly shocked. He was the first to suspect Xiang Beifei's strength, but he did not foresee his power being this overwhelming. Uncle Liang swallowed hard, looking at Celestial Maiden Guanghui trampled underfoot, and couldn't help but say, "But young Xiang is a bit inconsiderate here. Such a beautiful face, trodden upon just like that. What a waste. It's too beautiful. I've never seen anything this delightful." Xiang Beifei's footprint was imprinted on the previously goddess-like Celestial Maiden Guanghui's face, distorting her exquisite little face. "Uncle, at your age, you still have such fantasies?" Jiang Chuan muttered. "You don't. Honestly, I've never seen someone so womanly." Jiang Chuan couldn't resist gesturing, as Celestial Maiden Guanghui was truly too beautiful, every curve perfectly balanced, an ideal goddess in their hearts. To be honest, before every meat-winged monster transformed, they were very handsome indeed. Flashing some holy light on their bodies made them look even more divine. It was due to this usual appearance that the humans of Changpan Valley worshipped them. But just as they finished speaking, Celestial Maiden Guanghui, pushed underfoot by Xiang Beifei, screamed in fury, "You dare step on my face? I want you dead. I want you dead." Celestial Maiden Guanghui appeared to have lost her mind, her voice no longer sounding like celestial music, instead as grating as nails on a chalkboard, piercing and shrill. With the scream, the holy light on the previously goddess-like Celestial Maiden Guanghui dissipated, the feathers on her wings shedding, and her smooth skin revealed lumps like toads. Horns grew on her head, and her previously refined face turned into an ugly creature with a pointed mouth and collapsed nose. Celestial Maiden Guanghui was truly enraged to the point of genetic mutation. "Uncle Liang, do you still have fantasies?" Xiang Beifei turned his head with a smile and asked. Well, this." Uncle Liang was taken aback, gave an awkward laugh, and continuously plucked at his few wiry whiskers, the thoughts he had about Celestial Maiden Guanghui vanishing entirely. "Young Xiang, what are you thinking? At my age, how could I have such crooked thoughts? Ask Chuanzi if he wants any." Uncle Liang coughed and kicked Jiang Chuan. Jiang Chuan widened his eyes, immediately shook his head, and vowed earnestly, "I'm a man with a wife, never have divided thoughts. Even if this demoness were delivered into my arms, I wouldn't give the slightest thought." His expression was extremely serious. "Where is the sanctified image of the Celestial Maiden Guanghui now? She has become a complete and disgusting monster. Just a moment ago, she arrogantly pronounced the death sentence on the humans of Changpan Valley. But in the blink of an eye, Xiang Beifei stomped her back to her original form, turning her into a shrill and angry shrew. Yet under Xiang Beifei's foot, no matter how much she struggles, it is all to no avail. Rock and Carrie, the two meat-winged monsters, were obviously also stunned. They originally thought that the Celestial Maiden Guanghui had come to rescue them, only to find that Xiang Beifei, with just a lift of his hand, stepped the powerful Celestial Maiden Guanghui underfoot. This was too big of a blow for them. Everyone looked at Xiang Beifei with awe in their eyes, finally understanding how powerful Xiang Beifei really was. They also realized that the seemingly sanctified celestial maiden was actually not much better. Lowly humans, you hunt so many of our kind, and still dare to treat us like this. Do you think you can successfully take all the humans and escape from our domain under the moon god's nose? The celestial maiden Guanghui screamed. Is that what you think? Xiang Beifei shrugged his shoulders. The celestial maiden Guanghui sneered coldly. Any slight disturbance in this place, any desolate beast entering or leaving, will be seen clearly by the moon eyes in the sky. You dream of taking everyone away. Moon eyes, you mean those two moons in the sky? Xiang Beifei seemed to look up at the sky. It was still daytime, and the moon was obscured by clouds. The celestial maiden Guanghui snarled fiercely. The two moon eyes in the sky, day or night, they monitor the territory of the moon god. You fundamentally cannot escape. Xiang Beifei smiled and calmly asked, since the moon eyes are so powerful, how do you think I got in? The celestial maiden Guanghui was slightly taken aback. She truly did not know this. Though powerful races have some mutual contact, she originally thought Xiang Beifei had mingled in as an envoy from another race, but even those envoys, as soon as they enter the domain of the moon god, would be monitored. However, until now, no member of the moon god race could figure out how Xiang Beifei got in. Before she came here to investigate the situation, the moon eyes hadn't shown any anomaly in Changpan Valley. But as soon as she appeared, Changpan Valley changed drastically. You all know too little about me. Xiang Beifei shook his head slightly. What happens here is unknown to the outside. Those two moons in the sky might be quite powerful, but attempting to monitor him might be too naive a thought. As a Dao master with strong orifice perception, handling such surveillance should be rather simple. Xiang Beifei looked at the underworld monsters in the sky, signaled to Xiaohe, who immediately barked and charged forward, capturing all the underworld monsters into bubbles, then dragged each remaining meat-winged monster over, subduing them all. Beifei, how do we deal with these meat-winged monsters? Uncle Liang asked. Jiang Chuan said disdainfully, just kill them. These things have killed too many of our friends and relatives. Yes, we must not let these underworld monsters go. My parents and grandfather all died at their hands. There's no way we can spare these things. Many hunters were deeply resentful of these meat-winged monsters, venting their anger on Rock and Carrie these days, but it was far from enough to quell the villagers' fury. Many of their relatives had been deceived into losing their lives, and not killing these meat-winged monsters would not ease the hatred in their hearts. Jing Jiao and the other meat-winged monsters began to panic. Originally, they looked down on the humans of Changpan Valley, but Xiang Beifei had taught them a harsh lesson, and they could no longer remain calm. If you dare to kill any of us, powerful mages of the moon god will immediately come to seal off this place. You will still die. You all just want to survive and leave this place. If you obediently let us go, perhaps we can give you and all the people of Changpan Valley a way out, Jingjiu said. Jingjiu knew that none of these clansmen were a match for Xiang Beifei, so a bargaining chip for negotiation must be gained by seizing the lifeline of the humans of Changpan Valley. A way out? You would spare all the humans of Changpan Valley? Xiang Beifei asked. Deep down, Jingjiu was extremely resentful. Of course, this was impossible, as the humans of Changpan Valley were meant to be bred and used as egg sheaths, and then slaughtered for underworld sacrifices once they matured. How could they easily let these humans go? But now, he had to deceive this human into compromising. Once the message was passed back and powerful members of their clan arrived, they would surely wipe out this guy, along with purifying the entire Changpan Valley. At this moment, he naturally couldn't speak these words aloud. Jingjiu steadied his mind and said, Everyone is at fault regarding this matter. We've killed some people in the past, but you've also killed so many of our companions, so we're even. We are now in your hands, and anything can be negotiated, right? Nonsense. You only killed a few people in the past. Uncle Liang exploded. You imprisoned us for over 3,000 years and just killed a few people? We've only killed a few of you and we're even? Who are you trying to fool with that nonsense? For more than 3,000 years, the human population of Changpan Valley has consistently remained around 10,000. Any excess people were slaughtered. The meat-winged monsters deliberately controlled the population of Changpan Valley because this place is just the right size to sustain 10,000 people. This means that over the past 3,000 years, at least tens of millions of humans have been slaughtered. But for Jingzhou, it was just a casual sentence. We did kill some people. As if trying to cover up the past, clearly dodging the heavy questions. You massacred our people wantonly. This enmity is irreconcilable. Jiang Feng, as the clan leader, was also extremely angry, wishing he could devour these Huangquan evil spirits alive. Then what do you want? Those alive shouldn't just think about staying alive. Do you want a mutual destruction? What right do you have to deal with us? Do you think the moon god race only consists of us? You might ask this human leader of yours who wants to save you. I'm sure he knows what Flaming Six Wings and Jiaoliui stand for. Jingzhou was confident he had grasped their fatal point, which bolstered his confidence as he looked at Xiang Beifei. I don't know your name, but I think you should understand your situation. Let's not even talk about our eternal night sovereign. But those masters Flaming Six Wings and Jiaoliui are beings you cannot afford to provoke. Jingzhou laughed coldly. That's right, you might temporarily hide in Changpan Valley, perhaps find ways to elude us. But this matter will eventually be exposed. If you want to leave, you'll inevitably face the pursuit of millions of moon gods. Letting us live and negotiating with us is your only way out now. Celestial Maiden Guanghui also shouted softly. She almost lost control when Xiang Beifei stomped on her face before, but now she had calmed down. They must first stabilize this human. Only by surviving from the opponent's hand do they have a chance for revenge, to stomp back. Beifei, is what he says true? Jiang Shan asked. They had been trapped in Changpan Valley all their lives, unable to get out, not understanding the power of the meat-winged monsters, knowing at most that the deceptive 12-winged Divine Lord was their belief, and nothing more. But everyone knew that even if the parasitic egg sheaths in their bodies disappeared now, without Beifei, facing those meat-winged monsters was truly difficult. They must ascertain what the way out of Changpan Valley is. It is true. Xiang Beifei did not hide it either. This made everyone's face in Changpan Valley turn white. Beifei, even you can't be a match for that Divine Lord? Uncle Liang asked nervously. Xiang Beifei shrugged and simply said, he is very strong, stronger than you can imagine, and can indeed be considered as a god's existence. This was frankly stated. Experts in the immortal realm are extremely formidable, and Xiang Beifei already witnessed the shocking battle between Eternal Night Demon King and Taoist Qingyang at the floating Immortal Isles. Although the final result was Eternal Night Demon King being solved by Taoist Qingyang with a single Burning Yang move, the realm of immortal is real, and for Eternal Night Demon King, as long as Huangquan exists, he is immortal. Saying he is a god is not an exaggeration. The hearts of Jiang Feng and others sank. If even Beifei said so, what should they do next? Events had unfolded to this point. Changpan Valley is no longer safe. They knew they must migrate as a tribe, move towards Zhuozhou as Beifei suggested. But to migrate over 10,000 people, the target is too obvious. The dangerous desolate beasts on the journey aside, how to handle the Huangquan evil spirits surrounding Chase. Moreover, Beifei mentioned Zhuozhou is far away, not something achievable in a short time. Even if escaping the moon god's range, they still face the pursuit of Huangquan evil spirits. Over 10,000 people, Beifei alone. How can he protect everyone? The human race felt very heavy-hearted here, while on the other side, Jingzhou and Celestial Maiden Guanghui grew increasingly triumphant. They all knew they had wagered correctly. This leader of Changpan Valley, named Beifei, indeed knows the situation. Have you thought it over? Keeping us alive is your only chance to allow the humans in Changpan Valley to survive. Every moon god here has an extremely distinguished status. You have caught us, thus gaining bargaining chips. If I were you, I would utilize these chips well, Jingzhou said solemnly. Oh? What are your identities? Xiang Beifei asked with surprise. Seeing Xiang Beifei's inquiry, Jingzhou realized he started convincing Xiang Beifei. Recognizing the opportunity had arrived. He needed to intimidate this human to make him more apprehensive, Only then could he lead this human by the nose. Each person here holds a prestigious status in the clan. That rock over there, he's Flaming Six Wings' most valued junior this year. Flaming Six Wings is a highly esteemed elder in our clan. We've transmitted the news back before coming here. They are already on the way. If you dare to kill him, Flaming Six Wings' wrath is unbearable for you. Over there, Rock, who was pinched so hard he was near death by the Divine Lord statue, opened his eyes upon hearing Jingzhou's words and looked venomously at Xiang Beifei, then struggled to straighten his body. Xiang Beifei looked at Jingzhou thoughtfully and asked, "So, a junior valued by Flaming Six Wings. What about the others?" Upon discovering Xiang Beifei knew Flaming Six Wings, Jingzhou assumed Xiang Beifei understood Flaming Six Wings' prowess and feared. He became even more complacent. That carry, he is the grand disciple of Moon God Race's Jia Liuyi. If you don't release him, then Jia Liuyi's wrath will also burn upon you. Jingzhou shouted loudly. Jia Liuyi. Xiang Beifei didn't know who Jia Liuyi was, but hearing the name, he understood Jia Liuyi's status in the Moon God Race should be similar to Flaming Six Wings. After all, both were six wings, six-winged bird men. Their strength couldn't be weak. Jingzhou saw Xiang Beifei thinking, and he was convinced that Xiang Beifei was beginning to feel cowardly, instantly boosting his confidence. And our celestial maiden Guanghui, her background is even more impressive. She is the direct disciple of Wu Bai, also reputed to be the celestial maiden most likely to become an eight-winged divine envoy in the future. Our powers are determined by the number of wings we have, so you should know what Wu Bai signifies. You now know how heavy the chips in your hand are, Jingzhou said. Wu Bai, Uncle Liang and the others were even more uneasy. Guanghui, the celestial maiden, had only 4 wings, yet she was already so formidable. How powerful must Wu Bai be? Moreover, how terrifying must the 12-winged eternal night sovereign be? With such thoughts, they became increasingly unsettled. If they didn't kill these meat-winged monsters, the anger would be difficult to relieve, but if they did, the trouble would be even greater. Everyone was undecided, all watching Xiang Beifei, hoping he would express his stance. So you all have such noble status. I truly apologize for the lack of courtesy. Xiang Beifei nodded slightly and walked to Rock's side, surveying Rock. You just mentioned so many identities. I couldn't keep up. One by one. Let me sort it out. Did you say that this person is a favored junior by Flaming Six Wings? Pride filled Rock's eyes. His status was exceptionally noble, and this lowly mortal finally understood what Flaming Six Wings signified. Correct. Flaming Six Wings is a powerful divine envoy. You, a lowly beast, before him, can only grovel. Crack. Before Rock could finish speaking, Xiang Beifei directly snapped Rock's neck. Rock's eyes were wide with disbelief. Even until the moment of his death, he couldn't understand why this human beast dared to kill him despite Jingzhou having clarified their identities. Jingzhou was stunned too. Xiang Beifei actually killed Rock. He originally thought Xiang Beifei would refrain from acting out of respect for Flaming Six Wings, but never expected Xiang Beifei to act so decisively. Are you insane? Killing Rock, Flaming Six Wings will definitely not spare you. Celestial Maiden Guanghui hissed. Flaming Six Wings? How long has it been since you last contacted Flaming Six Wings? Do you know where Flaming Six Wings is in the divine realm? Xiang Beifei asked curiously. Celestial Maiden Guanghui and Jingzhou were slightly stunned. Lord Flaming Six Wings was elusive, and he went on a confidential mission back then. How could they know? Xiang Beifei smiled slightly. A crystal core appeared in his hand. He said, Your so-called Flaming Six Wings is right here. Celestial Maiden Guanghui and Jingzhou stared intensely at that crystal core. Incredulous. That spiritual power crystal bore the aura of late heavenly connection, and this powerful aura indeed came from Flaming Six Wings. But how is this possible? How could Lord Flaming Six Wings have become a crystal core? Could it be that Lord Flaming Six Wings has met with misfortune? This news shocked them nearly senseless. However, Xiang Beifei continued walking forward, calmly reaching Carrie's side. Looking at Carrie, he said again, "What Tortoise King 8-winged grand disciple are you?"
No. No. I.
I am of Jiaoyue. Carrie stammered, scared senseless. Doesn't matter. Xiang Beifei shrugged his shoulders, extending his fingers and lightly twisting them. Crack. Carrie's neck was also directly twisted, dying instantly. Jing Jiao and the other living meat-winged monsters were completely terrified. Originally, they thought that after revealing their identities, Xiang Beifei would definitely be very afraid of these 6-winged and 8-winged elders. Then, from the perspective of the survival of the humans in Changpan Valley, he would consider their words and negotiate well with the Moon God race. Once the negotiation reached a stalemate and the experts from the Moon God race arrived, they could directly eliminate Xiang Beifei. But they never expected that Xiang Beifei wouldn't fall for it at all. He didn't care about the so-called Flaming 6 Wings or Wu Bai. He killed members of the Moon God race without hesitation. Xiang Beifei walked up to Jing Jiao and asked, "Right. What did you say your identity was again?" I. Jing Jiao was already frightened. Just now, every time Xiang Beifei heard an identity, he killed a member of the Moon God race. How could he dare to be stubborn now? In fact, he also had a significant background, with a 6-winged meat-winged monster backing him. But he didn't dare to tell the truth now. Xiang Beifei clearly had a grudge with the higher-ups of the Moon God race. Even the flaming 6 wings had been killed. What was he compared to that? I'm just a nobody," Jing Jiao stammered. Xiang Beifei nodded slightly and said, "Oh, a nobody. Then there should be no one to mourn your death." Crack. Xiang Beifei immediately twisted Jing Jiao's head off. "You!" Jing Jiao's eyes were still wide open in disbelief, as if about to pop out of their sockets. This guy never expected to die so swiftly. It seemed that revealing his identity meant death, and not revealing it meant death too. Seriously, talking about identities here, I was once the pride of my homeland, did I feel proud? Xiang Beifei muttered as he discarded Jing Jiao's head, then turned his gaze to the other meat-winged monsters and asked, "What about you guys? Are you nobodies? Or little princes with noble identities? Is this a demon?" The remaining meat-winged monsters were utterly terrified. They had always delighted in massacring the humans of Changpan Valley with various brutal methods, but never imagined they would encounter an even more ruthless opponent today. Now, these meat-winged monsters even regretted coming here to provoke this damn human. But then they quickly thought, wait a minute, isn't this their territory? These meat-winged monsters were so scared that they didn't dare to speak. Xiang Beifei turned around and said to all the hunters, "Everyone must remember, the meat-winged monsters will never let us go, and they definitely won't engage in so-called bargaining. The meat-winged monsters are dishonorable, and if they live, they will definitely come back to kill us. Compromising with these vile creatures will only bring disaster upon ourselves. No matter what, we must fight to the end. Never retreat. Yes, fight to the end. Never retreat." Uncle Liang shouted passionately. "Fight to the end. Never retreat." All the hunters were also inspired by Xiang Beifei's resolve and shouted with fervor. They all knew that if their ancestors hadn't been captured and brought here, they might have had a better future now. But for more than 3,000 years, they had always been slaughtered by the meat-winged monsters, and so many friends and relatives had died under the lies of the meat-winged monsters. This account could never be written off. Whether it's for their loved ones, themselves, or their descendants, they must fight against the meat-winged monsters to the end. They had no way out. If they failed, they would once again be doomed, so they had to fight for a slim chance of survival. Even if it costs us our lives, we cannot retreat. That's right. We must go to war with these meat-winged monsters. Even if it means bleeding and sacrificing, we must pave the way for our descendants. Free them from the fate of being captured and slaughtered. We cannot repeat the same mistakes. Yes, we are humans, not slaves to the meat-winged monsters. Only by following Xiang Beifei and fighting their way out could they ensure that their descendants no longer become the cocoons and sacrifices to the meat-winged monsters. The bloodlust had already awakened in the humans of Changpan Valley, who had been confined for so long. They needed this ferocity to protect their tribe. Xiang Beifei watched the roaring humans and nodded slightly. In the battle against the meat-winged monsters, the humans of Changpan Valley wouldn't be much help. No matter what, the road ahead would have to be walked by Xiang Beifei alone, to protect the entire Changpan Valley by himself. He didn't mind doing it, but he only hoped he was saving a brave tribe, not a den of cowardly cocoons. Kill those meat-winged monsters. Jiang Feng drew his arrows and shot at the remaining meat-winged monsters. Countless dense arrows whizzed through the air, fiercely piercing into the forms of the meat-winged monsters. These meat-winged monsters were actually at least at the god refining stage and had extremely high defensive power, but in front of Xiang Beifei they were as fragile as paper. Let alone these humans, even a child could cut them. The cries of the meat-winged monsters echoed continuously, but no one sympathized with them, because each meat-winged monster was hatched from the moonprint on a human's arm, meaning that if one meat-winged monster lived, one human who once served as a cocoon had all their energy drained and died, and those humans all became underworld creatures. Killing them was to console the souls of those ruthlessly slaughtered humans. All the meat-winged monsters were killed, leaving only the celestial maiden Guanghui. And you? That guy earlier talked too much. I don't remember. What is your identity again? Xiang Beifei calmly looked at celestial maiden Guanghui. The celestial maiden Guanghui looked at Xiang Beifei with a gaze that, despite her ruthless heart, couldn't help but shiver. How can this human be so terrifying? Kill or torture? Do as you please. The celestial maiden Guanghui gritted her teeth and said, "You've got some backbone, as you said. I quite admire that. Beifei, aren't we killing this one?" Uncle Liang asked while waving his pipe. Xiang Beifei shook his head. "There's some use in keeping her. I need her to lead the way." The celestial maiden Guanghui, who was terrified moments ago, gradually calmed down upon hearing Xiang Beifei wouldn't kill her. "You want me to lead the way? Lead you out? Dream on," the celestial maiden Guanghui said through gritted teeth, full of malice. "Behave yourself. When our Beifei is speaking, there's no place for you to interrupt." Uncle Liang swung his pipe and gave a solid whack to the head of the celestial maiden Guanghui. The celestial maiden Guanghui was fuming with rage, glaring venomously at Uncle Liang and baring her fangs. "You'd better kill me, or when I escape, I'll drain your blood dry and skin you to make a carpet. Oh ho, aren't you something?" Bang! 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 Uncle Liang gave the celestial maiden Guanghui a few more solid hits, getting quite the satisfaction from it. The celestial maiden Guanghui's face twisted in fury. When has the glorious maiden of the moon god race ever suffered such humiliation? But she knew the old man was of no concern. The key was Xiang Beifei backing him. She sneered, "Just give up on that. I'll never lead you guys out of here." "Leave here? I think you got it wrong," Xiang Beifei said plainly. "I'm not asking you to lead me out, but to take me to the moon god palace, to let me have a look at the source of the netherworld." The celestial maiden Guanghui was slightly stunned, thinking she had misheard. This human wasn't looking to lead the people of Changpan Valley to escape, but instead wanted to go to the moon god palace? "I have never seen someone looking for death like you," the celestial maiden Guanghui said coldly. "Not necessarily." Xiang Beifei couldn't be bothered to explain. He waved his hand and imprisoned the celestial maiden Guanghui. Changpan Valley once again entered a state of combat readiness. Whether old or young, everyone was practicing archery. They all had to be prepared for the possibly impending situation. Improving their strength is never wrong. Xiang Beifei brought the celestial maiden Guanghui to his courtyard, scrutinizing this ugly creature. Jiang Feng and others gathered here too. They now needed to know Xiang Beifei's next plan. "I need to ask you a few questions," Xiang Beifei said. The celestial maiden Guanghui sneered continually. "You think I will answer you? You're too naive." Xiang Beifei didn't mind her attitude and continued to ask his question. 10 years ago, a human came to Changpan Valley. You suppressed him? Who was this human? The celestial maiden Guanghui scoffed inwardly. She didn't want to answer at all. How could she tell whether alive or dead? Yet in her mind, all impressions about this person involuntarily surfaced. She blurted out, "That person claimed to be Helian Zheng, very powerful. At the mid-heavenly connection stage, the people at Changpan Valley said he was from Juzhou. After killing quite a few of our members, he was suppressed by several six-winged divine messengers working together. But no matter how we pressured him, he never spoke about matters concerning Juzhou." The celestial maiden Guanghui suddenly startled. "Damn it! What am I doing? Did she unconsciously confess? What is going on?" Xiang Beifei fell silent. He vaguely knew who this person was now. Helian Zheng must have been unrestrained. Before leaving Juzhou, Su Yang once mentioned the past of Unrestrained. After the mysterious disappearance of Jiaoluo, Unrestrained was leaderless. The two heavenly connection experts within Unrestrained went to invite Xiang Tianxing to be their leader. At that time, Xiang Tianxing refused, but after discussing something with them, these two heavenly connection veterans left Juzhou, heading to the outer wilderness and never appeared again. Soon after, Xiang Tianxing and his wife also left. These two Unrestrained who were at the heavenly connection level were named Helian Zheng and Mu Chengxiang. It seems that Helian Zheng was the Unrestrained whose strength was second only to Jiaoluo. Xiang Beifei still hasn't figured out some things. For example, where did Jiaoluo go? What did Xiang Tianxing talk about with these two? That they left Juzhou by themselves. Does Helian Zheng know something about Xiang Tianxing and his wife? So, is he still alive? Xiang Beifei asked. Can't say. Celestial Maiden Guanghui clenched her teeth tightly, warning herself not to reveal secrets, but her mouth seemed beyond her control as she said, "We've been trying to find the remnants of Hanxia, so we can't kill him yet, only torture him in all kinds of ways for 10 years. But that old devil has a backbone, hasn't opened his mouth until now. He's half dead. We've separated his soul and body, soaked them in the extremely cold water of the netherworld, letting his flesh be bitten and corrupted by netherworld parasites, but not fully die, suffering daily from the torment of countless parasites devouring his heart, just to make him speak." Celestial Maiden Guanghui couldn't control herself. In Xiang Beifei's respected as a criterion, she involuntarily revealed everything she knew. But Celestial Maiden Guanghui was increasingly horrified, because it meant she couldn't have any secrets from Xiang Beifei. Jiang Feng, Jiang Shan, and others exchanged glances, feeling quite guilty, knowing Helian Zheng's torture was linked to the humans of Changpan Valley. What about the Eternal Night Demon King? How do you kill him? What are your weaknesses? Xiang Beifei asked. Celestial Maiden Guanghui, filled with shock and anger, immediately said, "None of us have seen the Divine Lord, but we always follow his instructions. We sacrifice ourselves to the netherworld, gaining strength from it, merging with it. Once the netherworld dries up, we will completely die wherever we are." After uttering this, Celestial Maiden Guanghui became increasingly angry. She viciously glared at Xiang Beifei, knowing her truthfulness was influenced by this human, now desperately trying to break free from control. "How can the netherworld dry up?" Xiang Beifei asked. "Block the spring's eye. Stop the netherworld from flowing out, and it will wither." Celestial Maiden Guanghui trembled more and more. This was a core secret. Xiang Beifei nodded thoughtfully. His previous inquiries to Carrie yielded nothing because Carrie's rank was too low to know. Capturing someone with a slightly higher status proved useful after all. Celestial Maiden Guanghui was called a Celestial Maiden, favored by Wu Bai. Her status should be notable. If the eggs you place in humans' wrists have not matured yet, but the person dies, where would these eggs go? They return to the netherworld hatchery sacred pool to continue hatching. I heard from your companion Carrie last time that the place cannot be entered casually. Only specific people can? Are you one of them? Xiang Beifei asked. No, I need approval to enter. Only heavenly connection elders are allowed unless a very gifted cocoon is sacrificed there. Then I have the right to enter.
Celestial Maiden Guanghui confessed truthfully.
A very gifted cocoon? What does this mean? Xiang Beifei asked. Celestial Maiden Guanghui explained, each of us Moon Divine Envoy's talents are seized from humans, meaning before we're born, we parasitize humans' wrists in Changpan Valley. The more talented the parasitized humans in cultivation, the greater our potential. For instance, I was lucky to parasitize a uniquely gifted human girl, seizing her talent and thus gaining the tribe's attention. Celestial Maiden Guanghui explained everything clearly. But Uncle Liang and others grew increasingly enraged upon hearing this. The talents of these meat-winged monsters were linked to them, first stealing humans' cultivation talents, then slaughtering them, while calling the humans of Changpan Valley lowly livestock. It was utterly beastly. Xiang Beifei remained calm, continuing to ask, "You always choose humans as parasitic targets? Previously we sought out powerful races, later discovered humans had the greatest potential, stronger than other races. Thus over 3,000 years ago, we attacked Hanxia, capturing Hanxia people, breeding them in Changpan Valley, using human lives to propagate ourselves." Celestial Maiden Guanghui said, "Demoness, you deserve to die." Bang! 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 Uncle Liang, enraged beyond control, grabbed his tobacco pipe and hit Celestial Maiden Guanghui several times. Xiang Beifei asked again, "So as long as you find a very uniquely gifted cocoon, you can enter the Netherworld Hatchery Sacred Pool?" Yes, if someone with exceptional human talent appears in Changpan Valley, and their normal cultivation ability is enough to reach the heavenly connection period, then the eggs they nurture will at least have the potential to grow to the level of a four-winged angel, said the Celestial Maiden Guanghui. Those meat-winged monsters like Jia Liui, Flaming Six Wings, and Wu Bai, the reason they have so many wings is because they have stripped the potential from rare human talents? Xiang Beifei asked. Yes, that's the reasoning, replied the Celestial Maiden Guanghui. Xiang Beifei frowned. On the other side, Zhang Feng hesitantly asked, "Beifei, does that mean, if this demoness had not been born, the girl she parasitized through normal cultivation could reach the demoness strength, what you mentioned as the late orifice transforming stage?" Xiang Beifei nodded slightly. "That's how it is." Uncle Liang and the others grew angrier the more they listened. They had witnessed the power of the late orifice transforming stage. Back when the Celestial Maiden Guanghui acted in earnest, it was akin to a deity's power, able to cover the sky with a single hand and destroy the entire Changpan Valley with one palm. The foundational talent to deploy such power, unexpectedly, came from humans. Previously, Changpan Valley was deceived into thinking their lifespans were short, and it was only because of the Moon Prince's benevolence that they could cultivate. So every human in Changpan Valley obediently submitted to the Divine Lord. But now they understood that all meat-winged monsters relied on the Moonprint to strip their talent. Without humans from Changpan Valley, there would be no meat-winged monsters. Bang! 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 Uncle Liang, furious, couldn't help but grab his smoking pipe to strike the Celestial Maiden Guanghui. Xiang Beifei fell into contemplation, and after a while, he waved his hand, presenting tens of thousands of moonprint goo worms densely before him. "Beifei, why do you still retain these things?" Jiang Chuan asked disgustedly. "I think they still have some use." These goo worms were extracted by Xiang Beifei from the villagers' arms in Changpan Valley, but he did not destroy them. Instead, he kept all of over 10,000 moonprint goo worms. Shouldn't these things be burned away? What use could they have? Uncle Liang asked angrily. Jiang Shan vaguely understood what Xiang Beifei intended to do. He was more rational and spoke up. "Beifei, are you planning to use these eggworms to infiltrate the Moon God Palace?" "More or less." Xiang Beifei examined these goo worms. Because they were separated from humans and lacked the nourishment of spiritual power, these moonprint goo worms had withered. But they had not directly died, as the egg's vitality from the infernal spirit of Yellow Springs was still very strong. Xiang Beifei only needed a bit of power to keep them in a half-alive state. The Celestial Maiden Guanghui was quite surprised when she saw thousands of eggs. She hadn't expected Xiang Beifei to peel these eggs from humans. How is this possible? How could you achieve this? She herself was hatched from humans, well aware of the consequences when eggs leave human bodies. With the frail physique of Changpan Valley humans, once the moonprint was removed, it was a dead end. Yet so many eggs here indicated all humans in Changpan Valley had already freed themselves from Moonprint Gu Worm's control. The celestial maiden Guanghui glanced at Uncle Liang and others' arms, confirming her thoughts. She realized these humans had freed themselves from Moonprint's control. She became increasingly shocked. Xiang Beifei's strength being higher than hers could be accepted. After all, humans naturally do not lack talent. But even Wu Bai dared not claim the ability to remove all moonprints from human arms, allowing them to jump around alive. Who exactly was this human? The celestial maiden Guanghui began to feel very uneasy, recalling that she revealed various secrets under some mysterious force, as well as the crystal core aura left from Flaming Six Wings' defeat. Gradually realizing this human was far more terrifying than she imagined. Xiang Beifei disregarded what the celestial maiden Guanghui was thinking and simply said, "I know these eggs are only dormant. You wake them up." The celestial maiden Guanghui resisted but couldn't refuse. She extended her hand, turning the Yellow Springs water into streams of spiritual power, falling on the tens of thousands of Moonprint Gu worms. Those once half-alive Moonprint Gu worms gradually began to revive under the stimulation of similar forces, gradually emitting pure and sacred white radiance that seemed like some elegant holy insects, harmless to people or animals. Uncle Liang and others saw these thousands of Gu worms revert to their original shapes and couldn't help but frown repulsively. They had lived alongside these things for most of their lives, once wholeheartedly guarding them, now wanting to slap themselves in the face in disgust, as much as they loathed them. Yet everyone wisely kept silent, only waiting to see what Xiang Beifei intended. According to your experience, you pick out the eggs with the greatest potential and classify them? Xiang Beifei said. Being a meat-winged monster herself, the celestial maiden Guanghui was naturally familiar with her kind. These eggs varied in growth, determined by human talent. Human talent was different. Most humans didn't have particularly high talent, many only reaching the meridian opening stage in their lifetime, with such talent producing eggs that wouldn't hold high status in the moon god race. Of course, a smaller portion of human talent was indeed outstanding. The celestial maiden Guanghui quickly selected more than 70 eggs from the tens of thousands, saying, "These 51 eggs, if matured, have the potential to reach the god refining period, and these 12 eggs could reach the orifice transforming period. These eggs are not from the same period. Most of them haven't fully cultivated to the full moon status yet." "No heavenly connection stage ones?" Xiang Beifei asked. "As of now, it seems there aren't any. We can only wait until next year when humans give birth to more children and try again." "I'll give you a big pancake." Uncle Liang angrily pulled out his smoking pipe and struck it on celestial maiden Guanghui's head with a few loud thumps. "Scoundrel! Don't let me regain my freedom." Celestial maiden Guanghui was filled with resentment, wishing she could devour the old guy alive. "No wonder you always teach us to have more children." Jiang Feng was also furious. Every year in Changpan Valley, people die, but under the deliberate guidance of the meat-winged monster, many babies are born each year. The mindset ingrained into these humans is that the more offspring, the better, the more children, the more blessings. The larger the family, the deeper the belief in the moon god, and the more likely they are to receive the moon god's protection. So it's quite normal for a family to have about 10 siblings. The number of babies born each year is roughly equal to the number of adults slaughtered. Therefore, the meat-winged monster doesn't expect exceptional eggs to appear every year. Children with the potential for heavenly connection only appear every few years. For example, Rock, whom Xiang Beifei had killed, was someone who deprived a human with the potential to cultivate to the heavenly connection stage of their talent a few years ago. Currently, there are no such rare eggs, but there are 12 eggs that can reach the orifice transforming stage. This means that 12 humans from Changpan Valley can normally cultivate and potentially reach the orifice transforming stage. Xiang Beifei gathered these 12 eggs, studied them carefully for a moment, observing the quality of these eggs. After pondering for a while, he selected 2 eggs that appeared to be the most active and infused his spiritual power into them. He used his spiritual power to nurture these 2 eggs. Once he understood the requirements of the meat-winged monster for the eggs, modifying them became quite simple. After all, his spiritual power has always been quite unique, different from ordinary cultivators. These 2 eggs, after absorbing Xiang Beifei's spiritual power, expanded from a half-moon state to a crescent moon state, emitting a bright silver light, like a piece of exquisite white jade plate, extremely splendid and elegant. Moreover, this egg continued to expand upward after reaching the full moon, from being just a flat full moon to gradually bulging into a round ball, like a white jade bead. Buzz! A golden light even shone from within this white jade bead. Xiang Beifei withdrew his spiritual power and asked, "How's the potential of this egg now?" This is an 8-wing. No, a 10-wing potential talent egg. Celestial Maiden Guanghui exclaimed in shock upon seeing this suddenly mutated white goo worm egg. As a celestial maiden in the tribe, she knew very well what the state of this egg signified. Don't be fooled by her current 4 wings. That's only because she hasn't fully matured yet. Back then, she absorbed an extraordinary human talent, evaluated as having 8-wing potential, which is why she became a celestial maiden of the Moon God Palace. Yet the aura possessed by this current egg far surpasses hers. According to her understanding, this is at least an 8-wing potential talent display, potentially even a 10-wing potential. For eggs of the Moon God race to reach this level, they must seize the talent of an exceptional human, someone who may not appear even in several decades or centuries. Yet now there are 2 10-wing potential eggs in existence. Oh, I only infused a little spiritual power, and it already has 10-wing potential? If I were to give it a bit more spiritual power, wouldn't it have 12-wing potential? Xiang Beifei muttered to himself, rubbing his chin. What? You can even transform it into 12 wings? That's impossible. Celestial Maiden Guanghui was astonished beyond words. 12 wings are already talents of the Divine Lord level. It belongs to the top talents of the Moon God race. The Eternal Night Demon King is a powerful presence with 12 wings. A human claiming he can cultivate a 12-winged egg? Is he out of his mind? Maybe. Xiang Beifei casually infused it with a bit more spiritual power, and the golden light from the egg that was once just a white bead grew ever more radiant. Gradually, all the white light was enveloped by the golden light, and a strong aura surged from within the egg, covering the entire courtyard. This aura was so immensely powerful, like a terrifying mighty force about to be born. The whole sky began to gather various colored clouds, purple aura converging here, golden light interweaving, with a vague, magnificent divine power emanating from the golden moon god egg.
Evenly phenomena descend, purple aura spirale.
Thud. Facing the pressure of the moon god egg, Celestial Maiden Guanghui was utterly unable to endure it. This pressure might be nothing to humans, but for her it was different. It was a suppression of her bloodline, a definitive sign of a king among the meat-winged monsters. Is it really the potential of 12 wings? The future ruler. Celestial Maiden Guanghui was utterly shocked. The potential of 12 wings had already reached the level of the Eternal Night Demon King. If this egg hatches and is given time to train, it could definitely evolve from 2 wings all the way to 12, becoming the next Eternal Night Sovereign. It's a divine egg with 12-wing potential. Really? A divine egg with 12-wing potential? Guanghui prostrated on the ground, oppressed by the royal aura from this egg, unable to even lift her head. She was exceedingly terrified, thinking she had a superior status in the tribe as a celestial maiden with 8-wing potential. But in the face of this 12-wing potential future ruler, she was nothing. Is this the potential of 12 wings? I haven't even tried hard yet. Let me try again. Xiang Beifei continued to infuse his spiritual power into the golden moonprint goo worm. The moonprint goo worm grew smoother, and its light grew brighter, but at that moment, bang! A terrifying explosion rang out. The strong golden future ruler egg exploded directly in the air. Whoosh! 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 The powerful aura swept across like countless small knives, and if not contained, it might have flattened the entire Chongpan Valley. Xiang Beifei hurriedly contained the explosive wave, forcing it down. What's going on? Celestial Maiden Guanghui stared blankly at the fragments in the sky. Where's the 12-winged divine egg? What did you do to our moon god race's future divine king? She shouted at Xiang Beifei, mixed with shock and anger. I just wanted to test its potential, but it's a pity the potential ceiling of your moonprint goo worm is just there. It couldn't handle the additional spiritual power I input, and it exploded. Xiang Beifei shrugged, somewhat helplessly. Guangwei seemed about to go crazy. You blew up our moon god race's divine egg. You dared to blow it up. You should die. How dare you? Are you an idiot? It becomes your divine egg because I want it to. If I'm too lazy to act, it's just a caterpillar. Understand? Xiang Beifei looked at Guangwei with some pity. Besides, I wanted to give it more potential, and it couldn't withstand it and exploded. Isn't it your fault for having such a low potential ceiling? Xiang Beifei added. You. Guangwei finally came to her senses. Just now, the divine egg's emergence had overwhelmed her to the point that she even forgot that the divine egg's quality in her eyes was forcibly elevated by Xiang Beifei. That is to say, it was Xiang Beifei who created a divine egg. All moonprint goo worms rely on depriving human talents to grow. If a divine egg with 12-wing potential appears, it must have deprived a frighteningly talented parasite of its abilities. Yet this human casually produced a divine egg. His potential far exceeded 12 wings. Just how terrifying is this human? Wait a minute, since when could the egg of a moon god goo worm improve its quality simply by infusing spiritual power? It's known that a usual infusion of spiritual power at most accelerates the moon god egg's maturation without altering its potential level. Because the eggs of meat-winged monsters derive their potential from depriving humans, they are generally fixed and unchangeable. Otherwise, the moon god race would have easily found a heavenly connection expert to infuse these eggs with spiritual power daily. So why is Xiang Beifei able to artificially produce a divine egg merely by infusing spiritual power? Can a human truly achieve this?